rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm hiding out from the world.
You're doing a good job.
Okay, first up on our agenda is a presentation of our audit for 2012 by Mr. Andrew Arias of Cooper Neiman, our auditing company.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'm going to stand here, so I don't like to have my back to anybody. Thanks, Kara. My name is Andrew Arias. I am the partner in charge of the audits in our firm, and we do lots of municipal audits throughout the county, and we've been working on the town's audit for several years now. I'm just going to go through each of the funds of the town, let you know where each of them stands, and also go through a little of the trends that they've been going through the last couple of years, and then just give a brief overview of some of the issues that the town is dealing with at this point. When I start my presentation, I always remind everybody, when we're doing an audit, we're not looking at every transaction of the town. We use things like materiality to decide certain size transactions. As a government audit, we have to look at three things: your financials, which is your numbers and your notes. We have to look at your internal controls, and we have to look at your compliance with certain laws and regulations. If you expend over $500,000 of federal monies, there's an additional audit called a single audit, which means we have to look at your federal monies, specifically controls and compliance over those federal monies. The town did not need a single audit in the current year. Lots of towns around here, normally that kicks in if you have a community development grant or if you have FEMA money comes in for disasters. So basically what we're doing, we give our opinions, we're giving our opinion on the fair presentation of the financial statements. What it says is if someone looks at those financial statements, would they be misled by the overall position of the town? And that's the opinion that we're giving on the town. I'm going to go through each of the funds one by one, then in the handout that I gave you there, you might want to follow through each of the funds, and there's some charts that gives you some trends. I'm going to start out with your general fund, which is obviously the major fund of the town. Your total fund balance for the year decreased $60,000 this year. $47,000 of that was attributable to the town share of the Esplanade grant. There was a matching requirement on the Esplanade grant, which the town had to meet, so $47,000 of that decrease was attributable to that grant. Overall, the town did outperform its budget by $24,000. They had planned a decrease of $84,000, and the components of that planned decrease was $94,000 of appropriated fund balance, but that also built into the budget was funding the reserves for $10,000. So when you budget in funding of reserves, you're not really spending money, you're just increasing your reserves. So the $94,000 appropriated to $10,000, the town had actually planned a decrease of $84,000. The fund balance went down $60,000, so the town outperformed its budget. At the end of the year, the unassigned fund balance of the general fund was $266,000. That's the portion of fund balance that the town can use it for whatever they need. That's there for emergencies, unanticipated expenditures. It's not set aside for anything else. And we always try to show that in a percentage format, because $100,000 in a general fund is not the same as $100,000 in a water fund or $100,000 in a highway fund. So as a board member, when you're looking at those fund balances, you always want to look at it as a percentage of your budget. Give you an idea of how much you think should be in those fund balances. So over the last 3 years, at the end of this year, the unassigned fund balance for the general fund is 46% of the entire 2013 budget. In 2011, it was 64%, and in 2010, it was 59%. When you're looking at those percentages, for towns, there is no statutory limit as to how much you can keep in unassigned fund balance. You're supposed to be looking at it, you're supposed to be keeping what you think is a reasonable amount to have set aside for emergencies. School districts, for instance, do have a statutory limit as to what they can keep in it, but towns do not. That's just something to remember when you're looking at those fund balances. Your highway fund, your total fund balance increased $271,000 this year. You outperformed the budget by $209,000. Again, and the reason for that is there was $62,000 built into your budget to fund the reserve in the highway fund. So although the increase of $271,000 was really outperforming the budget by $209,000. Now the reason for the big increase in the highway fund is pretty common amongst municipalities this past year, was because of the very mild winter. And we're seeing it through most of the municipalities, big increases in their fund balance in the highway fund. And that's a nice thing, because I've spoken here over the years, and in all the towns I go to, highway funds can be very difficult to manage fund balance. So if you have a chance to build up a little bit in your fund balance, it's always a good thing. And it's nice to see that you're also funding a reserve for the highway fund, which is good. The unappropriated fund balance at the end of the year for the highway fund is $618,000. That makes up 59% of your 2013 budget. And the trend there was 32% in 2010, 37% in 2011. This year it went up to 59% of the ensuing year's budget. And again, that was because of the big increase in the fund balance. And when you're looking at those fund balances, normally if you're looking at a general fund and a highway fund and a water and a sewer fund, a highway fund is probably the one where you want to have a little bit more of a cushion in. Because a highway fund can get hurt a lot quicker with a bad winter. You get a lot of snowfall, fuel prices go up. General funds normally are a little more straightforward as to what your expenses are going to be. There's not going to be too many surprises in a general fund. Water and sewer funds also can have, you have a water main break or something, you can have a problem with those. But the highway fund is the one that, when you're looking at, you should try to give yourself a little bit of a cushion. Sewer district, the total fund balance increased $52,000. Again, $10,000 in the budget was attributed to funding the reserves. So the town built in these funding of their reserves in all of their funds. And we do like to see that when you build them right into your reserves. The unappropriated fund balance was $259,000 in your sewer district, and that's 139% of the budget. Now, again, that's when you're looking at percentages, just remember that when you're dealing with a smaller fund or a smaller district, 139% of the ensuing year's budget sounds like a lot, but it's $250,000. And again, in a water or a sewer district, if you get a water line break or a sewer break, you can spend a lot of that money pretty quickly. But again, it is up to the board to determine where they feel, how much they feel comfortable keeping set aside in this unappropriated fund balance. And finally, your water district, the total fund balance increased $49,000 this year. $14,000 of that was attributable to the funding of the reserves. Again, funding the reserves in the water district. The unappropriated fund balance at the end of the year for the water district is $163,000. So looking at that, that's 115% of your 2013 budget. So you have enough in that fund balance to cover the entire budget, the amount equal to the entire budget in an emergency in your water fund. But again, looking at it, it's $163,000, a lot less than the highway fund, for instance, even though the percentage is a lot higher. Then after that, the next couple of charts is just sort of showing you trends. So the first chart you see here is the general fund, and you see the trends in terms of your fund balance. Those are the three components of your fund balance. You have your appropriated fund balance in the red, your unassigned fund balance in the green, and your restricted fund balance, which is the black in the middle. Ideally, what you're looking to do when you manage your fund balance is keep your appropriated, which is the red, and your unassigned, which is the green, as level as possible. Now, normally you're doing that through your reserves. Any unanticipated expenses, if you fund your reserves and you can spend reserves for that, you're not using fund balance, you're not getting tax levy spikes up and down trying to fund unforeseen expenses. Now, if you look at the district here, the town here, you see those lines are fairly level. The general fund went down a little in 2009, it went back up a couple of years. This year it went down, as I spoke about a little earlier, because of the Esplanade grant. But one other thing, when you're looking at a chart like this as a board member, you look at the green and the red, and what you want is you don't want the green and the red to get too close together. Just a sort of a rough idea when you're looking at a chart like this. If your unassigned fund balance is pretty much the same as your appropriated fund balance, that's when you could conceivably have a problem if your fund balance gets depleted and you have no more to appropriate the next year. So just in looking at those trends, that's something you should be looking at. The highway fund, you look at the chart over the last few years, and it's a nice looking chart, as you see. The highway has been building up a fund balance, and I know several years ago, there was very little money in the highway fund. And one of the issues we had was about $5,000 or $7,000 or something in it, and in a highway fund, that's a very low amount to have in a highway fund. But as you can see, over the last several years, the highway fund has been building up its unappropriated fund balance for emergencies, and also in the last year, they also started funding a reserve, which is nice. If you have that extra money now in the highway fund, it's a good idea to fund a reserve. This way, you need to buy a truck or something, you have reserve money. You don't have to either go out and bond it, or you don't have to take it out of your unappropriated fund balance. Same trend in the sewer district. You see it a little bit less of an increase, but a steady increase every year. It goes up a little bit each year. Also, you see over the last several years, the sewer district also has been funding its reserve. What you notice there is it's very little in appropriated fund balance. With the highway and the sewer and the water are really appropriating little or nothing towards fund balance every year at this point. Their budget is pretty much standing on its own as to what they are. So really what you're looking, if you think that those fund balances are getting to a point where you want to bring them down a little bit, that's when you would start appropriating some of your fund balance to sort of bring down some of that fund balance. And then the water district again, another chart you see over the last several years, a steady incline in the fund balance. Again, even if the full fund balance doesn't stay completely level, you do want to see gradual. If there are increases or decreases, you want to see a gradual increase or a gradual decrease. You don't want to see the spikes up and down. And the last several years, the Water District also regularly funding their reserves. And that's a great thing, because if you do have an emergency, you don't have to use your fund balance and deplete it. You take it out of your reserve and you can use that for it. So that's very important in long-term planning. So just in closing on these fund balances, at this point, the town has healthy fund balances in all of the funds. As you saw from the amounts that I mentioned and the board saw in those charts, the fund balances are at healthy levels right now. You're funding reserves through the budget process. That's great long-term planning. I know I've talked about that a lot over the last several years, and I talk about it at almost all the board meetings I go to, is that if you can build in funding of your reserves right into your budget and just fund them every year, that's the best way to do it. Because then it's already included in your budget, you're building up your reserves, and if an expense comes along, you have the reserve to pay that expense. But you should be monitoring those fund balances, your unassigned and your unappropriated fund balances, the ones that you can use for anything you want. The board has to determine what level they want those fund balances to be at. Where do they feel comfortable? Do they want it to be 50% of next year's budget? Do you want it to be 100% of next year's budget? Do you want it to be 20% of next year's budget? That's really, as a board, what you have to determine, what you feel comfortable having there. And then once you come up with that figure, that's where you're trying to keep your fund balance fairly level right in that range. Also in the report, there's a management letter. There's actually 2 letters in the front of the report. The first one is a management letter, which we give some recommendations. They're items that don't rise to the level of being in the audit report. There is one written comment in the letter this year. When we issue the letter, we also do put management's response. So if somebody looks at your financial statements, they see the response right in there. They see what management, their explanation for it is, and what they're doing going forward. Any minor issues we discuss verbally with the business office, isolated incidents, things like that, we'll bring that to their attention. And all the previous year comments were addressed and corrected. And we do like to see that. When we have a lot of comments written there, we have a section in our management letter that'll say previous recommendations. And you don't want to see previous recommendations coming up every year. So it's nice to see when there are written comments that management takes care of it, addresses them, corrects them, and they're not findings in the next year. And that is something also when the state controller looks at towns, it's one of the first things they look at. They looking for recurring problems that are not being addressed by the board or by management. So it's important to address any findings that we come across. The other letter you get in there is what we call a SAS 114 letter. It's a statement on auditing standards letter. That's another communication with management. And what that letter does is, first of all, it tells you all the things that we're doing in the audit. And in addition, if we have any problems in the audit, so if we're in the audit and someone is giving us a hard time, someone's not giving us the information we need, in this letter we would report it to the board that we're having problems on the audit. Also in that letter, we'll point out important note disclosures. So the financial statements, there's a lot of boilerplate stuff in those financial statements when you're going through them. We'll put in that letter and we'll say, make sure you look at note 6, make sure you look at note 8, make sure you look at note 10, because these are important notes as a board member you should be looking at. So it gives us a chance to sort of let you know what are the important items or something that might be new. We'll also include in the report is a SAS 115 report, another auditing standard report. This is a report that goes right in the audit report. And this is part of what the government auditing standards I spoke about earlier. It talks about the internal controls and the compliance. And that's a report that goes in any kind of a municipal audit. There were significant deficiencies and material weaknesses last year in that report. Those are the ones that are right in the financial statements. And I spoke about those as it was important to address those. And I'm happy to report the town did address all those issues. They were corrected. On the back of the report, on page 43, is the last page of the report. It lists what the findings were last year and how they were corrected. So again, when someone looks at those reports, they can see how the issues were corrected, those deficiencies. There is one significant deficiency that stays in the report. It has to do with being able to prepare the financial statements. It's a very common finding among small municipalities. It really has nothing to do with the day-to-day operation. Part of our standard says that if your business office can't prepare an audit report like we prepare it, we have to give you that comment. So virtually all of our small municipalities get it. It's really nothing that you should be concerned with, or really nothing that you can do much with. I don't necessarily agree with it. It's part of our standards, and I'm hoping that at some point they'll change that, and they won't force us to put it in the report. Other issue, last year I discussed the outstanding liability for some of the payroll liabilities the town had. Those are still outstanding. There's about a $19,000 IRS liability. Last we checked, I spoke to Michael in my office, and the IRS has received documentation about that, and we're hoping that will still get abated. It's not reported in the financial statements. It's shown as a contingent liability. In note 7 to your financial statement, if you look at your financial statement on page 25, there's a lot more detail on exactly what that is and the exact amount of what we're calling a contingent liability. And the reason we call it that and we don't record it as an expense is we feel that it's going to get abated. We feel the town's not going to have to pay, so we don't want to expense it and then have to get rid of it. But at this point, it's still been going for a long time. The New York State issues were taken care of, and we're just left with the IRS issues going forward. And the town does get a qualified opinion on your financial statements, and that's another common thing with a lot of the small municipalities. In order to get a clean opinion, you have to have an appraisal report done on all of your fixed assets. You have to adopt the capitalization policy and have an appraisal done to come up with the value, the historical cost value of all the assets in the town. And you also have to do what's called GASB 45 report, which has to do with retiree health insurance. And to do that, you have to hire an actuary who will calculate the present value of that potential liability. So now all the schools will do that. They'll hire the appraiser to do it. They'll hire the actuary to do it. A lot of the small towns have opted not to do it, not to do the added expense. And we've seen no ill effects yet of not doing those reports. Nothing in terms of interest rates or anything. We always remind our towns, keep in touch with bond counsel. Keep your ear out. If it looks like it's going to affect you and you need to do it, then at some point you may need to do it. But at this point, you get a qualified opinion. And actually, the new standards is to change the audit report. It lets us give sort of 2 opinions. So if you look in the first couple of pages of the report, it'll give you a qualified opinion on the governmental activities, which has to do with the full accrual statements. But the very next paragraph says you get an unmodified opinion on the fund financial statements. And that has to do with really everything that a board is concerned with. That's your budgeting, that's your fund accounting. So we're able to sort of say, okay, it's qualified because of this, but the rest of the financial statements are fine. They're unmodified. So you do get that kind of an opinion. Again, that's something that's common amongst a lot of the small municipalities, fire districts. They're not going to go through that expense for something that really is not benefiting them. Nobody's looking at the town of Tuston financial statements and going to make a decision based on what your fixed assets are. That's not really a concern. As a municipality, your concern with fixed assets is budgeting it and paying for them when you purchase them, or with reserves or with bonding or something. So that's pretty much it at this point. Like I said, the town's fund balances are all in good shape. It's something the board should always be looking at and monitor them, because a good fund balance can quickly become a not good fund balance. You have to watch it every year.
When you had mentioned a deficiency from last year, so that we can be clear, that's a deficiency from 2011, am I correct?
Yeah, 2011.
All right, not last year, it's 2011, which was a different board, a different supervisor at the time, correct?
Yes, and that was cleared up in 2012. So if you like to say, in the back of the financials, it'll explain, these were prior, when they say prior year findings, you're talking about 2011.
Okay. You and I had a nice conversation on the phone, lengthy, and I appreciate all the information. And we were talking about the trending of the town's general budget. And my concern is that the trend is, last year we spent it down about, 2012, yeah, last year. Spent it down $84,000. And in the upcoming year, we have a $581,000 in revenue. However, we've appropriated $688,000, which is about $107,000, but we also have $10,000 going back into the reserve. So you're talking about a $97,000 deficiency. And then if you back out your fire and the water, you have to do it on both sides, both on your income and your, okay? So it's, either way, it's $97,000. If we continue now, when we had discussed, when we had talked, you said that the general fund is pretty much a very stable fund. There's not usually a lot of surprises, like in your highway fund, you've got bad winters or a truck or something goes bad and you have to buy a $150,000 truck, but that's really not the problem with the general fund. So what your budgeted amounts pretty much in reality on target, I would think, for the most part, because those appropriated funds are spoken for by people's salaries, by known costs year to year to year. Am I right? So if we continue with the trend that we're on, and we spend down another $97,000, I realize $25,000 of that is the Esplanade. Excuse me. So if we take that out, but it's still a lot of money that it's a continued raid, if you will, on the cash reserves. So what would you tell the board, or how should we proceed? Because it seems like if we continue to go as we're going in another 3 or 4 years, we're keeping our tax increase under the 2%, but we're raiding our cash reserve funds to balance that out. So what is your opinion?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, if you look at the chart on the general fund for the last 5 years, you'll see that pretty much every year the general fund appropriates about $100,000 for the last 5 years. Yet, the fund balance has gone up and down. It hasn't gone down $100,000 each year. That's very common. Most towns are going to be conservative when they budget. You're always, pretty much always going to outperform your budget. But I will say, when you're planning the budget from year to year, if you appropriate, like you're saying, $97,000 net use of fund balance, which is correct, if at the end of this year, that budget is exactly on target, and your fund balance is going to go down $97,000, then you absolutely, you address it the next year. The next year, maybe you don't appropriate 97, you appropriate a little bit less. But that's why a good fund balance isn't just, by itself. It can change very quickly. And you have to go year to year to year. Now, if the fund balance was to go down $97,000 and you kept the appropriated fund balance the same for 4 years, despite the fact that it went down $97,000 every year, you would use a fund balance. But I would expect that you wouldn't do that. I would expect that the first year it went down 97, you might appropriate 50 the next year. And then you would diminish that a little bit each year gradually, so you're not using up all of your fund balance. Again, it's not an exact science when you're looking at these fund balance managements. It's very difficult sometimes to figure them out, but normally you are going to outperform your budget when you're looking at it. If I had to guess right now, your fund balance is not going to go down $97,000 this year. In the general fund, but it may. Obviously, some things could happen, but that would be my guess. But those are things when you're doing your budget plan, when you're doing your budget workshops at the end of the year, it's so important to have accurate financials to be able to say what does it look like our fund balance is going to be. You have to know what you think you're going to end at fund balance before you start appropriating money. You have to know, and I've seen in plenty of audits where the end of the year would come and the town will appropriate $10,000 in the budget, and by the time we get in there, they have $8,000 in the fund balance. They've appropriated more than they even have. That happens, and that's the job of the board, to watch that fund balance, monitor that fund balance, and not to let that happen.
And I want to note too, Ned, that $25,000 that's in the budget this year is for those penalties and interest from the IRS and the state. So if those are abated, as we expect they will be, that's $25,000 that we're not going to spend.
And that, Carol, is in which line item on your?
General government support, I'm guessing the top would be, right? Judgments and claims, 1900.
Judgments and claims, yes.
Probably 1930 or something.
Okay. All right. Also, just one other. I don't want to. In your audit, okay. The revenue, net expense, and revenue change position from 2012, we have about $260,000 appropriated for general government support, which is the general fund.
What page you on?
I'm sorry, 5. Page 5. In 2011, the totals were $205,000, so it's about a $60,000 increase in the general government support. But on the highway side, we're down about $145,000. In 2011, we were $951,000, and in 2012, we're down at $807,000. Are we moving money from the highway funds back into the general fund to support the general fund and taking away the highway fund? If not, you would think there'd be a big surplus.
No, when you look at basically what happens, this report you're looking at is not the fund financials that you're going to see later. This is the full accrual financial statements. Okay, so they're a little bit different. There's things that are allocated to transportation, things like that are a little bit different. But when you look at this fund, what this is saying for your transportation expenses, which again would not only be your highway fund, it's anything else would be transportation, but it's mostly going to be your highway fund, obviously. It would say that in the last year, the net cost of the highway fund was $951,000. This year, the net cost is $807,000. That's a positive for the highway fund.
Yes.
So, and that was reflected in the highway fund's increase in fund balance of $271,000.
But so then are we taking that $145,000 surplus and putting it against the $60,000 in this budget, and that's how we're making up our budget, even though we're
Against which 60,000?
the $60,000, which is your general government support?
Well, general government support is not just general fund. That also can be in some other fund. Well, it's good. I'm sorry, that will be mostly general. Because in your case, highway doesn't have it, water doesn't have it, sewer doesn't have it. So it's mostly general. But that's the general government support. That could be a $60,000 difference in the general fund. It did $60,000 worse the general fund this year, and then some of the other things might have done a little bit better. These are more line by line government support items. But the overall general fund was a loss of was it $60,000, whatever it was,
Right.
And that's reflected in the general fund. There's no use of highway money for general fund.
But it's appropriated at the beginning of the year, so my question, or my point, or it actually is a question is, are we taking the money that the highways, that we're saving from the highway fund and now spending it in the general fund. Is that what's happening? Is that how we're offsetting that? Why is there such a huge difference of $145,000 in the transportation fund from one year to
Because,
another?
like I said, the snow and ice removal costs went down significantly
Right.
this year. That was the main reason. The same reason why, if you go and look at the highway fund, if you look at I just want to show you real quick. If you look at page 27, which is your highway fund, and look at the difference in the transportation code in the highway fund. It's really all highway. The difference from last year to this year is $130,000 or $120,000.
Down.
So most of it is right there. Some of it might, the other little bit of transportation is probably the general fund, which is highway superintendent, whatever those costs are. But basically what you're looking at in that first statement is all within the highway fund. Highway monies absolutely cannot be used in the general fund. They have to stay in the highway fund.
But that's not what I'm saying. It's
You're
not
saying
being
what, the
used.
tax levy?
Well, what's been done, it looks like to me, is that we've taken the money that the highway department has saved us, and now we're spending more of it in the general fund. Is that true?
I'm not sure how you would do it. You talk about the tax levy?
Well, just in your appropriations at the beginning of the year, not in your actual money. Of course, we can't make money from the highway, but if he's saying he doesn't need that extra 145,000 because it's down 145,000, it would be nice to see that come back and just be a reduction in the overall appropriations, which would mean the tax levy of the town, right?
Yes.
But we're spending it somewhere else.
Well, you're not spending it because it's in the highways fund balance. You didn't spend it.
But it dropped. It dropped.
Highways fund balance went up.
Oh, that's where the.
Highways fund balance went up $270,000. So the savings in the highway is in the highway. Now, certainly, when you're looking at, what we see in a lot of towns will do is if the highway fund, for instance, doesn't need it, they might lower the tax levy in the highway fund, raise the tax levy in the general fund. It's all the same tax base. If you don't have a village, it's the same tax base. So they'll do that. But once that money is raised in the highway fund, it absolutely cannot go to the general fund. It has to stay in that highway fund. But you're really supposed to be looking at your general, your highway, your water, and your sewer as 4 separate businesses. That's the way you got to look at it. They are 4 separate businesses. They should not be, commingled as one fund helping another fund. They are supposed to be 4 self-sufficient businesses. So if the highway fund makes money, the highway fund's going to stay in the highway fund. That absolutely has to stay in the highway fund. Now, you're allowed to make general and help highway in a town like this where it's the same tax base. We don't recommend that. We recommend the highway fund being, self-sufficient and the same with the general fund.
But if you get all your cash reserves to a certain level that the board feels comfortable with, then at some point you can have no tax increase or actually have a reduced tax levy. Is that right?
Yes, and one of the things that I always say is when you get to that point, what's a nice thing to do is if you think you're raising too much, just keep the tax levy level. Your expenses are going to catch up fast enough. If you think you're raising a little too much in taxes, you keep your tax levy level, those expenses are going to raise. You got, retirement costs, health insurance costs, all those things are going to catch up very fast. So if you can also reduce your tax levy, you can. But if you reduce tax levy, normally what's going to happen is then you're going to have to raise it the next year to catch up.
Or reduce your appropriations in the year that you reduce that tax levy.
Right. If you're doing the highway fund every year, and one of the really important things I always say is when you're doing a budget, look at your actual. Don't always just look at your budget. If you're coming in, and this is one of the things actually that the state ed and the state control has been hitting a lot of school districts on, but it's the same exact thing with towns and villages and fire districts. If you're coming in $200,000 under budget every year on this one line, you need to reduce the line. I agree with you. You can't just keep budgeting the same amount and you're coming in 200,000. Now, it may be a little different with highway, I will say, because if you're budgeting a certain amount for sand and salt and you had a mild winter, oh gee, we didn't spend it, let's reduce it down to 200,000, and then next year it's a regular winter, you're going to be way over budget. It's sort of a tough balancing it. But on the normal items, on the items that that are pretty easy to budget from year to year, if you're coming in way under budget every year, that has to be addressed. That's the board's job, is to address that. Change those appropriations. You don't need to raise as much in tax levy. However you want to do it, appropriate more fund balance. But absolutely, that's what you would do. Exactly what you would do in that situation. And it's up to the board. If you want to reduce the tax levy, you can do that too. That's certainly your prerogative. And there are things in the 2% tax cap that if you reduce your tax levy, you're not stuck with that new base. They still give you, I think it's a 1.5. So if you have a $10,000 tax levy and you drop it to $6,000 one year, you're not stuck at the 6. Your tax cap is now 10,000 times 1.5%. So if you need to go back up to where you were, you can. So that's something just to keep in mind if you wanted to do that.
I have a quick question, and thank you for your presentation tonight. If you were a teacher, okay, and you were to grade, okay, our fund balance, because you are not only looking at Tuston's finances, but you're looking at other townships, And there are a lot of people that are concerned about taxes, they're concerned about our finances, they hear certain things, some of them are true, some of them are not true. How would you grade right now our fund balance, A, B, C, D?
I don't give a letter grade, but in the end of my report, like I said, you have very healthy fund balances.
You have a
You're
very healthy
healthy,
fund balance.
you have good fund balances in all your funds. I mean, you know, if you look at the report, it gives you the percentages, it shows the trends. At this point, none of your fund, when you look at, I think the lowest of your fund balance is your general fund, which is 46% of the ensuing year's budget. I mean, we have lots of places that have 8%, 12%, 20% of the next year's budget.
Right, would you say that management, meaning, let's say the board, how we function, our deficiencies have also improved? Because when I read your report, that certainly they have improved from 2012 versus 2011, is that correct?
Well, the significant deficiencies and the material weaknesses that we wrote up in 2011, the things that were being done incorrectly and we felt that rose to that level, were corrected in 2012.
I asked the question because I've read the report. People in the audience have not read the report, so I just want to make it clear, since you were nice enough to be here tonight, so that, you know, it's understood that our fund balance is healthy and also that our deficiencies have been eradicated, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Are you willing to talk about the community garden? Because there's information that's been bandied about in the press regarding the, whether the town did everything above board regarding that?
If the board's okay, I would want to talk about it. We didn't do the audit on the Tuston Local Development Corp, but I'll be, you know, then I can discuss, I'll be more than happy.
Thank you.
But you'd have to do the audit first to be able to discuss all this.
Well, no, I thought you said wanted to ask some general questions. Oh.
Well, there's certainly, I read the newspapers, and it seems that there were a few people that have, I would say, called the IRS, that there was some inappropriate activities on behalf of the Tusten Local Development Corporation. So I just wanted you to just give us just a brief overview of that, if anything happened which was illegal.
Yeah, like I said, if you're asking me what happened within the Tuston Local Development Corp specifically, I don't know. I haven't looked at their records. I haven't done anything with the Tuston Local Development Corp to know. I mean, I've read the papers. I know what the charges are and everything. Whether they're true or not, I have no way of knowing because I haven't looked at their records at all. But certainly, if we come in, we do the audit, I'll be more than happy to, you know.
I'll bring everybody up to speed when we have the TLDC review, because I did speak to all the parties involved. So there's more information, but of course that's outside of your realm, as you didn't do the audit.
Yeah, and I'd be more than happy to do a presentation like this for the Tuston Local Development Corp. Same thing. Once we do the audit, and we can, you know, go over any findings we come across with the local development, because we do several local development corps as well.
What was the quotes that you said? What were the costs approximately to do an audit for the TLDC?
I think normally with the local development corps, you know, I hate to get on record as to what I'm gonna quote on. I'm on camera, right? You know, you gotta hold me to it. But normally, I will tell you with the local development corps, what I normally have done in the first years is I've given them a very low quote. I don't remember what it was. I'll be more than happy to email it to you tomorrow. I really don't want to. It's a low quote to try to get you going. It'll probably be more, and then, you know, we'll have to see how much it costs after that from year to year. We understand the first year when a local development corp is created, they usually don't even have money in their budget for an audit, so we try to help them out. So virtually all of our local development corps that we've done from the beginning, the first year we've done very inexpensively, and then the second year, still, you know, well less than a town would be, obviously. You're talking about, you know, we try to do them if we can for less than $5,000. But, you know, it depends. You know, local development can have a lot of activity, and if it turns out to have a lot of activity, we would have to, you know, give a proposal, and then it's up to the board what they want to do.
Did you see, speaking about the TLDC, do you have any information? Are we a 501c or 503c, or do you know what the
Tuston Local Development Corp is a 501c3. It's considered a component unit of the town of Tuston. So you're really a governmental unit. An audit of the Tuston Local Development Corp would be done in accordance with government auditing standards, just like the town of Tuston. The financial statements look a little different. The way local development corps are done, they're reported under the not-for-profit format. It's just sort of industry practice, how they do local development corps. But you are subject to government auditing standards. So we would look at internal controls, compliance, anything that would be an audit like town of Tuston's audit would be.
I didn't hear that. They're a 501c3?
Yeah, they're just like a government. They're a government entity. Tuston Local Development Corp is a government entity.
And so they're an arm of the...
They're a component unit of the town of Tuston, because the town has control over the local development corp. And it's I saw it's created, there's a certain section of the not-for-profit law that all local development corps are created under, which Tuston Local Development Corp was created under that section.
Can you take that TLDC and move it to a private entity? Is that possible or no?
move it, well, if you
Well,
want to
no.
create a private not-for-profit?
Well, just take that and just move it away from the government. Do they ever get to a size where you say, okay, listen, we don't wanna be governed by the town board anymore and move on to their own board?
You would have to do your own tax exempt application, like any not-for-profit, you could do that. I mean, right now, the only thing that really makes them a component unit is the town of Tuston has a seat at the board, appoints board members, has control over the Tuston Local Development Corp. If at some point they wanted to, it wouldn't be called the Tuston Local Development Corp, obviously, but you could create a regular 501c3 not-for-profit, say that we're here for the betterment of the community, which is some of the criteria for a 501c3, and you have to do an application, a 1023 application with the IRS. And if they, accept your tax exempt application, you would be a normal 501c3. You would file a federal form 990. The local development corp doesn't file a 990. They have to file under what's called the parish reporting system with the state. So, but if you're a regular not-for-profit, you would file a federal form 990, just like any other not-for-profit. United Way, anyone like that, you would be. But then you'd have to apply for that tax exempt
Are
status.
there advantages and disadvantages to both ways?
The only advantage, I guess, to being a component unit of the town is the town can help you if they want. The board can authorize to, help, give some money or help them with grants. There are some situations where local development corps can get into guaranteeing things. Now, most towns don't do that. They appoint board members, they do oversight, but the local development corps sort of operate on their own. But in terms of being a not-for-profit, I mean, if you want to be a not-for-profit, not be sort of under the armor of the town, then you would go out on your own. They're both not-for-profits. I don't know if there's really any advantage one way or the other.
Andy, I think the Liberty operates as a CDC. Do you do their books?
Liberty CDC
That's
is a 501c3.
Right.
That's it.
That's a separate unit.
Right, they're not under
That's-
control of the town of Liberty.
One last question.
Since it's the arm of the government, is all their information foilable?
Actually, I believe it probably is. I'm not 100% sure on that. I have to double check on it. But really, as a component unit of the town of Tuston, I would guess that it is
So the
probably.
same information that can be requested of a government can be requested.
Right, because they're part of the town of Tuston. But again, I don't want to say for sure. There might be something in the law that protects a local development corp or a component unit. But I don't want to say without, getting a definitive answer on that.
All of this stuff went way over my head. Is there enough money in this budget for us to have a party?
A very nice party.
Thank you for the presentation. It was wonderful.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, any department heads? You guys have any questions for Andy?
Just one last thing. Page 32, please. Okay. Town of Tustin General Fund Comparative Balance Sheet from 2011, 2012. 2011, total liabilities fund balance 668,000, and now we're down about 90,000 to 578,000. Is that because, we decreased it by 84,000. Is that showing that $84,000 decrease?
Well, you can see that really the different components. Your cash is down $80,000. Down $100,000.
Right.
So, and a lot of that sometimes will just have to do with money that you owe to people. When you're looking at assets, like this year you have $33,000 that's still owed from the state, due from the state and federal. That has to do with the Esplanade grant. So that's money you laid out. So even though in your records you're showing that you earned, as of right now, you earned $47,000 on the Esplanade grant, you still hadn't received $33,000 of that, but you expended it all. So you had to lay the money out and expend the money. So really, it just has to do with, when you're looking at total assets and total liabilities, there's a lot of moving parts in there, cash, receivables, and things like that.
So we spent right now, the town, out of the town budget, if you double that, you would double that number because it's matching funds, right? So it'd be 33.5 twice, right? So it'd be 67,000.
As of this year, there was 94,000 spent and 47,000 earned, just the 50%.
Okay.
The 33,000 only what was still owed at the end of the year. So there was money already received during the course of the year.
Okay, so that 33 is, and that's the 25 that's in the town budget that covers that 33.
I'm not sure, what's the total amount of the Esplanade grant? Is it 150?
150.
So basically, if you've already spent 94, you still have 50 more to go, which 25 is your matching share. I'm guessing that's where the 25 came from, is the last $50,000. And I'm not even sure if that whole 33,000 is the Esplanade grant. Without looking at the detail, I do know there's a large chunk that's still owed from the Esplanade grant at the end of the year. And I believe actually you received it in the first 3 months of the year.
Okay. Thank you.
Andrew, thank you very much. And as always, thank you all your input, and you've been a tremendous help. Your corporation is always a tremendous help to us, and,
Sure, any questions, any other questions? Always
there
feel free to
first.
call my office, I have no problem. Always pick up the phone and happy to talk.
He will spend a lot of time with you on the phone, I can guarantee you that.
That's okay, there's no problem.
and I would
Always
just
there, I
like,
always answer my phone.
and I would just like to publicly thank, Karen Valente, our bookkeeper, because, without her help this year, I mean, both of us have worked diligently to remove all of those, write-ups that we got last year, the deficiencies and whatnot, so it took a lot of work and a lot of, diligence, and I just wanna say thank you, so. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
On to number 4. Item number 4, a lot of people have complained about our meetings taking a very lengthy, a long time. So I've talked to a few other towns and whatnot. Some towns and some school districts use a consent agenda. I brought this to the board's attention. I formatted the agenda as a consent agenda tonight in one part, as you'll see. And it's at the board's pleasure. If the board so decides that we will adopt a consent agenda format, then we can continue this format. The consent agenda is basically for things to be adopted by general consent without debate. It's for things, if you don't expect debate on the minutes or the bills or appointments of certain things or whatnot, if you don't expect debate and you don't usually have, you move it, you have a second, and there's no discussion anyway, those are the things that would be on the consent agenda, and you move the entire consent agenda at one fell swoop. And if there's no dissension and no debate about it, then it would be adopted. In all those resolutions, they're printed on the agenda. The public has the agenda. The minutes would reflect each resolution individually and separately, as they always are. And so that's the motion's there, if anybody wants to move it. Number 4. To adopt a rule of order reading a consent agenda may be presented by the supervisor. Items may be removed from the consent agenda on the request of any one board member. Items not removed may be adopted by general consent without debate. Removed items may be taken up either immediately or after the consent agenda or placed later on the agenda at the discretion of the board. Any discussion?
Well, I'll discuss it, because the thing is that I had heard about the consent agenda, so I had gone to Google, and then I had sent everybody on the board, I think this morning, a couple of links as to what a consent agenda is, and it seemed to me, from different governmental organizations, that it's a way to streamline the process, and I don't know how many other of my colleagues read that, but that's basically what we're trying to do, where if there's repetitive motions and we're all in agreement, we're trying to basically bracket items 13 through 17 and then just go with a consent item on that. What we could do is, if people have questions, they could reread those links. There's plenty of information online about consent agendas, and then bring that up next month. I'm for it. At the same time, what I would like to get is, I'd like to get the agenda, if we're gonna go through a consent agenda, I'd like to get it at least
Earlier.
3
Yeah, I
or
agree.
5 days
Yes.
prior to that, so that I can understand what item 17 is or item 19 is. So that's what I would like to do. I certainly don't mind tabling it until next month, so that people have an idea of what specifically a consent agenda is. I'm for it, but I also like to get the agenda at least 5-6 days prior to the meeting.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Norm, you have an opinion?
Not really in favor, but I'd like to see it tabled till next month, so I have more time to research it.
Okay. Eileen? Okay. Ed?
I'm totally opposed to it. I think we're here before the public once a month. And if it takes a little bit longer to get the meetings done, so be it, We should, it's too easy to group a couple of resolutions in there that we don't know if they're gonna be an issue. All of a sudden, things come up and there's a problem that we didn't know about, and that resolution needs to be discussed, and it should be discussed openly before the public. when you do these things, it has a possibility, there's a possibility of pushing things through, and if you're not on your game, it just gets pushed through, and then the public doesn't know about it. So, hey, listen, if we have to spend another hour here and discuss things before the public and include the public, then I think that's what we're here for, and it's once a month. If we're meeting every week, and it was a real time factor, it'd be another thing, but I'm totally opposed to it.
Okay, my comment is, before we adopt a consent agenda, every board member has the option to remove an item from that so that there can be discussion on it. That's the whole point.
Well, again, Carol, even at that, I didn't get my final agenda last night till I think it was 11:13 last night. And so now if you have a consent agenda, and you're getting these final agendas, you would need an agenda, in my opinion, a week ahead of time to discuss, but that may not happen. So if you have a consent agenda and we get an email the night before, then we're scrambling.
Friday morning.
Right, but I didn't. Anyway, so I got the final agenda last night. And so I would like to see, an open discussion of any resolution, and, what's the hurry?
Okay, table till next month. Motion to accept the minutes of March 6, 2013, special meeting, and April 9th, 2013, regular meeting as submitted. Can I have that in the form of a motion?
I'll move it.
Second it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 6. Anybody want to move number 6? I'm not going to read every single
I'll move it.
resolution.
I'll second that.
Norm, Tony, all in favor?
Aye.
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 There's some discussion there. Karen sent me I had a question on Chazen's bill.
Correct. And we got the information for you on that.
Yeah, I saw the email come through, but I didn't get to open it.
You'd like it, it's in paper there.
What it was, there was a question about the permits on Chazen's bill. They submitted a bill for approximately $8,000, and part of that bill was for permits, and I wasn't aware that we received any permits. So can somebody help me with that?
He explains it there, in the beginning of his email.
That's the email?
That's what was contained in the email. Hold on.
So what's in the beginning
See
of
if
that
I can
paper?
get it.
Did he actually get permits, Carol? I guess that's my question.
What he does is, they're contacting all the agencies, the state agencies, the federal agencies, everybody that they have to contact in order to, and what they do is, Karen, help me out with the wording, I forget what he called it. It's a, I have it here somewhere in my email. Oh, hold on one second. Right. And say like if he contacted Parks and Rec, I guess, and asked if we needed an archaeological dig.
Right.
And then, that would come back either yes, you need to do that, or no, you don't need to do that.
Well, this
He
page,
said this document with the responses will be completed by the end of the week for review and circulated by the end of the month with any and all responses received. Note that we did receive the no effect letter, that's what they're called, the no effect letter from SHPO, which is the state. Please let me know if you have any questions. So if you want to contact Larry and ask him in more detail than what he's provided there, that he's going to provide more detail in a week.
the only question I have is that on that line item, that check paid him in full for that line item. And I'm not sure, it doesn't sound to me like all the permits are, I would ask that we hold that check until we have, or at least that part of that check, until we have a conclusion on, because that pays for permits in full.
Well, it doesn't pay for permits, it's what's.
That's the line
in
item,
the-
that's what it said, that's the line item,
It falls under that line item, yes.
but it pays in full. So unless we have all the permits and all these agencies have been contacted, why are we
Well, they
paying them in
have all
full?
been contacted, he's waiting for some responses.
Okay, then he shouldn't be paid in full, in my opinion.
Anybody else?
Until you guys completed, I think we should withhold payment until he's finally completed on that. Unless you wanna do percentage payment or whatever.
You cut a check for the rest of it, Carol.
Okay, I'm just trying to think, I don't have the bill in front of me, so I don't know. Do you remember, Karen, how much?
On that part was $750.
That should be withheld. I would say that's my opinion.
Okay, so bills are approved with the exception of the Chazen bill, which we will withhold $750
Pending his completion of
pending
the
the completion of the
permit
report
process.
on the permit process.
Great, I'm good with that.
Okay, can I add that in form of a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Norm?
I'll second it.
Ned? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There's the water and sewer report, is there for your reading pleasure. Correspondence, again, I've changed the format in which we're gonna do this in order to save a little time. If anybody in the public has any questions on this, if they'd like me to read a certain letter, I'll be more than happy to. The clerk has the letters available here for your reading pleasure this evening. If you wanna just read it, you can ask, we'll pass them out, and you can read the letters. Aileen Gunther, it was just regarding the Second Amendment resolution in support of what we had passed. Sullivan County sent us $20,000 check for our streetscape grant, so that's finally complete and done, but because the flagpoles were up and complete.
And that 20,000 was an expense from 2012.
Okay, right, so.
Say that again,
That's-
please. What was that for?
The expense, it was streetscape money, the benches, the flagpoles, all that stuff, that was an expense from 2012, which we finally got now,
Okay. was a-
reimbursed for.
That was a
Lids
grant,
for the
right?
garbage cans, Jenny?
Pardon?
Have you figured on the lids yet for those garbage
No,
cans?
we don't have those yet.
Yeah, something has to.
So that again will be another $20,000 that we didn't anticipate, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So.
Okay, good.
Okay, Gerda Buhner, use of the community hall kitchen, the same as last year. Time Warner, a check for $8,162.72, purchase franchise agreement.
Could you read that one, or discuss it, or at least summarize it? Only because broadband extension into some of these streets is super important, I think, for a lot of people.
The extension of what?
Broadband. Does
Oh.
it have anything to do with extending broadband anywhere?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with that, it's per the franchise agreement that, actually since
When are we gonna
expired,
start
but
negotiating with
we're,
that?
yeah, we
But
talked
my-
about that.
Yeah, my
We're gonna-
service has
yeah.
not been the best of late, and I'm getting a little tired of paying
I know.
$130 for
Yeah.
broken up and I can't watch it.
Yeah, we said we were gonna sit down and
Yes, let's-
discuss that, so.
Yeah, let me know
come on
when
up
you
and
want
see
to. Yeah.
So, no, it's just, per the franchise agreement, they pay us a certain amount per year. So that's basically all it is.
The franchise agreement sort of defines their responsibilities in providing a certain amount of people in
Correct.
the town.
Yep.
Does it allow for sort of expanding it, or do they have a responsibility to expand it as more people come in, or you're using it?
No.
or- Do you,
They don't have a responsibility to expand.
do you know what their responsibilities, I'm just asking, this isn't
I
meant to be
couldn't-
antagonistic, do you know what their responsibilities are?
I couldn't tell you for the
Tony,
franchise
maybe
agreement, I
something
mean, I have to
to
go up and
research,
get the franchise
because-
agreement to look at it.
There's obviously nothing more important to people anymore than internet, and the DSL just, as more and more people are jumping on it, it's slowing down, the DSL, the frontier offers.
Franchise.
Yeah, no, I had to go to a bonded line just to keep my speed up.
The what?
Bonded line.
Okay. I'll read that letter from them. Dear Supervisor Winger, pursuant to our franchise agreement with the town of Tuston, encloses our check in the amount of $8,162.72. This is full payment for our franchise fee due, per definition, from the town of Tuston residents for the period January 1 through December 31st, 2012. Encloses schedule showing the basis upon which this franchise fee was calculated. And that was it.
The reason why I ask is because sometimes these companies have a lot of responsibilities that they're not living up to. That's kind of buried
Right,
in the
we're
fine
in the
print.
process, we need to renegotiate our franchise agreement, so we'll be looking into it.
Carol, when will that happen?
That's a good idea. I like that idea. When
Yeah,
will
we-
that happen?
Norm and I have to discuss it, and
Okay.
Yeah.
that'll start soon,
Okay.
so. Ag and Markets, New York State Ag and Markets, regarding the dog control officer inspection report, he was rated satisfactory. Sullivan County Treasurer, regarding the town offer to purchase the 2 lots, they have accepted our offer as outlined and will contact me with the total purchase price,
Where are these lots?
up by the highway barn. Security Concepts, regarding the bailiff certification, basically they, stopped working with the, Department of Justice, so they are no longer
Explain it, or-
certified to,
We have a new certification gentleman be coming on board for 0 cost,
Right.
and his credentials are
yeah, we have
impeccable
that
at
later on
best.
the agenda,
Yes.
yeah. just an announcement, the town of Dryden, that's there. The announcement of free rabies clinic to be held Wednesday, May 22nd, 6 to 7:30 p.m. That's free to all county residents. An announcement that Fort Delaware will be holding a colonial market and fair on Memorial Day weekend, May 25th, 26th, 27th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday and Monday, noon to 5 on Sunday. And just a congratulatory note to Jeff Bank on their 100th anniversary. We'd like to wish them well and many more years. And that's correspondence. Division reports, highway.
Okay, everybody's in a big hurry, so let's go. We used 394.4 gallons of gas. 148.7 was non-highway and 245.8 was highway. Used 1,632.5 gallons of diesel, 308 was non-highway, 1,323.8 was highway. We had 6 hours of overtime this last month due to Lindy sweeping the town and the flats down here. The only day they could do it was on a Saturday, so that's the reason for that. Took plows and wings and grates out of trucks. I know it was only last month that we did it though. Took down no winter maintenance signs and no overnight parking signs. We swept all the town paved roads. We ditched and graded and rolled Brook Road. Put 3 pipes in Dexheimer, 2 were replacements, 1 was a new pipe to help with drainage problems. We ditched and graded and put pressure run down on Luxton Lake Outlet Road and did the same on Homestead Road. Okay, Lindy came over and swept that, had overtime. Did some ditching on Coshecton Turnpike and Grassy Swamp Road. Did some patching on Coshecton Turnpike, Malls Pond on the dirt section. Deep Hollow filled potholes on Hankins Road and A Road with 1A crusher run. It's a different crusher run I'm trying instead of the other stuff. It's a little finer. Seems to pack in and harden up better. Got out the new shouldering machine and hooked it up to our truck. We got it all ready to try out. It's off the truck now, but at least we had to drill holes and weld brackets on the truck, and that's all done. It works good, seems to. Put a pipe in on the Coshecton Turnpike in a new location to help with runoff problems. Graded and put down crusher run on the back of Royal Oaks. We did half of it last year. We did the other half this year. Did some ditching on Irishtown Road and A Road. Ditched and graded and put down crusher run on Swamp Pond and Chalk Road. Ordered and received 3,000 tons of crusher run. Fulfilled the salt order. We had to order 410 tons. That fulfilled our order of 1,200 tons. And we got probably about 650 tons in our salt shed up there now, so we're sitting good for next year. Had to put salt order in for 2013, 2014. I put in 1,200 tons. I put in 1,200 tons last year. The year before was 1,600. And we kind of got burnt there because we have to take 70% of it. But by the same token, we can take over 30% of it. So if it does run over 1,200 tons, it's not a problem. This year I could have got away with not taking 410 tons and taking the 70%. But salt prices this year was actually cheaper than last year, so I took advantage of it to fill the shed, because probably they will go up next year. Supplied truck for the litter pluck. On 427, we got about 50 bags. We mixed 1,150 tons of grader patch with vegetable asphalt, which we use for paving and patching and a little bit of everything. On tomorrow morning, I think they're gonna start, if everything goes as they say, they're gonna start grinding on Kirk Road out here. Originally, they were gonna grind the whole Kirk Road and then put new pavement down. But after doing some core samples, they arrived at the conclusion that it's better off not to do that and to build the base up a little bit on the road instead of taking away. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna grind the intersection so there's not a hump going off and some of the driveways where it's gonna be a problem. And then they're gonna T&L it on Thursday, which they might start tomorrow. And then they'll pave it, and they can do it all in one day. The road won't be closed. There'll be traffic, there'll be guys down there directing traffic. I mean, you'll have that problem. And then on Friday, we'll be up at Arena, and we're gonna do Arena on Blacktop too, so. But that should all be done by the weekend. The only problem I see is there's not gonna be no lines on the road. I called the county, and earliest they can get over is after Memorial Day, so it's gonna be online, but they told me to keep road construction signs up, and that covers you. So, and that's all I'm gonna have for you now.
Thank you very much.
Carol, can I ask, when you say you swept Down the flats, what does that actually mean? Does that mean like the,
In town and on, School Street, the flats, we get Lindy to come over, cause they got a vacuum truck that actually sweeps and picks it up.
okay.
And we do it in town because all the houses are so close to the road and everything. So that way, on the other roads, we get away with just going down and sweeping it to the edge of the road. And you can't do that in town or on the flats because of people's lawns and stuff.
Thank you, Glenn.
Good
Oh,
job on the farm
water and
sewer.
We got a call at 444 Delaware Drive about a sewer smell in the basement. We went and we found that there was an exposed pipe with a piece of tape over it. I advised the owner to cover the pipe properly, and the sewer smell will go away. 71 Hickory Lane called about a possible leak. He heard a sound in his service line. We listened to it, we shut it off. We found that he did have a leak. It was on his side. He contacted a contractor to come and dig it up, replace it. We supervised it. In the process, we changed the curb stand and the stainless steel rod since the stand was exposed. I ran the grinder stations on generator power on Main Street after we had the J&S wire, the transfer switches up. Everything works good, so we're good for a power outage. Hopefully we never use it. Miss Holbert called me, said that she replaced the blow off on her hot water heater twice and it's still blowing off. We went, we found out that the pressure reducer was bad in our house. It was feeding the house with 85 pounds pressure, so advised her to change that, and she took care of that. Replaced the fire hydrant on Oak Street, installed a valve before the hydrant, as per the request of the fire department. It was the hydrant. The next one is gonna be in front of the post office.
Okay.
Replaced the meter base at 82 Oak Street due to a lot of sand in the system. It clogged it up. Installed the water fountain at the ball field. Repaired a chlorine line at well 3. We flushed hydrants and operated main valves. Charlie's cutting grass at all the wells in the sewer plants, as he always does for years. Worked on the beds on pulling weeds and burning weeds. We reinstalled a couple meters due to seasonal homes, and today we had the water tower inspected by Pittsburgh Tanks. I should have a review. They videotaped it, they sent in a little robot, and they videotape it and everything. They're gonna have a videotape and written recommendations on what to do with the tank and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I should have that in a month, possibly by the next board meeting.
Right, and we had discussed doing like a 5-year plan or
Yeah.
better and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're gonna say what they found. They took paint samples and
Okay,
the whole nine, and they'll give us suggestions on a couple different routes that we can go.
okay.
But the thickness of the steel is pretty thick. Like, it's like that
Yeah.
thick, so, I mean, it's hard to see on camera,
Yeah.
but it's pretty thick for, he said it could take a pretty good shotgun, like a bullet, and it won't,
Yeah.
so, I mean,
Okay.
just in relation to how thick it is. So
Like
it's
going
not
on
in dire
bigger
need of being
drawing. Right.
replaced. Yeah,
Gotcha.
a cannon will take it down, but,
Right,
I mean, not a,
yeah, gotcha.
a 12 gauge or anything won't do it, hurt nothing.
Tom, does that tank have to be painted soon? Is that the issue? Is that?
It's beyond,
Yeah.
it's been years since
Yeah, it's been a long time.
anything's
since we
been
did
done
that
to it.
thing.
We are past due,
Yeah.
and when the Department of Health was here, all our tests are coming back fine, so they're not pushing us to do anything. I mean, it's not, they're not saying by June 1st we have to have an answer, but he strongly suggested that we have the tank inspected and go and have an answer next time they come. They're gonna be around next year, but they strongly suggested that we get a video camera to see what's going on inside the tank. I mean,
But it can be painted if we need to. It's not a structural issue.
yeah, I think it can be painted, but that's also by depending on what the recommendations of the company is. Obviously, I'm not just gonna go by with what they said, I'll bring it to the board and everything like that.
Right.
But they might suggest that it might need some work inside, I don't know, I mean,
Was that one of the issues though, that they didn't want it painted?
they didn't want a wax lining like we did before,
Wax, okay,
so we have to see what our other routes are.
right,
So, like I said, in the report,
right,
they'll give us some suggestions on which way we can go.
right.
But, just so everybody knows, it was clear, it was clean. It was easy seeing
That's
everything,
good.
so. And if anybody wants, when I get the DVD, it's 16 minutes long, I can be happy to show people. I mean, I don't know if anybody cares to see it or not, but
Is it set to
They have a
music?
party night.
there's no music, unfortunately, and I couldn't talk, so
There you go.
I was quiet.
Okay. Any other questions for Don? Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Building, Gary, you're up.
For the month of April, conducted 22 construction inspections, 1 fire and safety inspection, 3 complaint-related inspections, issued 2 certificates of occupancy and 3 certificates of compliance, issued 6 building permits of various types. We conducted 6 CO and violation searches, received 3 complaints, 2 were closed, we issued 1 violation, and we had a previous violation that was closed as it was corrected. Monies collected by this office in April were $863.40. Myself and the clerk attended class in Binghamton for fire and safety, fire and structural safety inspections for public and private schools and residential pools and decks. That's it.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Gary? Ken?
Well, with the May completion of the tentative assessment roll, I showed what Gary had showed us earlier in the year, that there was less building going on. Taxable value went up $425,000 approximately compared to $798,000 for the previous year. The total assessed value grew $661,000 compared to $930,000 for 2012. 2012 was already down. We had normally been getting a little over $1 million a year for several years in our increases, so we're showing the slowdown of building and improvements. The roll's completed. Grievance day approaches 4th Tuesday, May 28th. Calls on the notices I have mailed out have been very minimal. I've received a couple other calls from people that didn't get notices that want to make appointments to grieve. We have 2 so far. Since we normally have 10 maximum, why having 2 scheduled at this point is a little concerning because it's still early. So we'll see how that goes, and that's my report.
And when is May?
May 28th, 4th Tuesday.
How much?
Best of luck with that. Any questions for Ken? Okay, beautification, Jane?
UGC is
Oh,
next.
I'm sorry. Oh, UDC, right, I skipped.
I'll take over. Susan was here, but because of Andy's presentation, she had a appointment. So I'm going to read her report. And because it's in longhand, because she thought she was gonna be here, but she has left, and it's in longhand, this report's gonna be very brief, because I can't read her handwriting. Okay, so anyway, the UDC report goes like this. The New York State DEC Open Space Plan. Delaware River is a priority in the draft plan. If a town identified land it wanted conserved on a willing seller basis, the state would consider purchasing it, and they would continue paying tax on it. Heather Jaxie of Planning, Sullivan County Planning, is the contact person. Next item, the National Park Service conducted foundation planning workshops. The Upper Delaware Council attended. Also a work in progress. On June 6th, the UDC is hosting a speaker, Thomas Murphy, who's the chief engineer from New York City DEP. He's going to offer a presentation across the street. The UDC annual river sojourn, the registration is open right now, and that will be held June 22 through June 29. The draft letter to the PA Pennsylvania DEP supporting Pennsylvania towns was approved, and that's it. UDC meetings are open to all. There's a website, upperdelawarecouncil.org. It's right across the street, and all of the minutes. This is very abbreviated, is online, so if anybody wants to read it online, upperdelawarecouncil.org. So that's my report.
Thank you
in
very
place of
much.
Sue.
Jane?
Beautification. We coordinated the litter pluck efforts in town. As Lynn reported, there was a full dump truck when it was complete, and I noticed the difference along the roadways, although I'm seeing litter once again. But anyway, the litter pluck was a success. We have received our check from Sullivan Renaissance, and it has been given to the town tonight. Coming up, usually the first Saturday in June, we have a plant and bake sale. So that's a plant swap and bake sale, and it's pretty popular for every gardener because they love to swap the plants.
When?
It's usually the first Saturday in June. Plant swap and bake sale. And Glenn, I imagine that the trash barrels the new ones are not out until we get lids?
We had a mistake with those, and when we sent all the scrap metal down, they went. So we'll pay you whatever it was per pound, but
You're funny, what?
Oh,
they're still wrapped in plastic down in the old town
okay,
shed. They're all
so
set.
we just until, wise guy. So just until we get the lids, I guess that makes sense. And you and I, we'll discuss
Also on
that.
them, you need to get like 35-gallon cans to put inside them,
Okay,
because
so
the square
we'll
ones
have to
aren't
meet
gonna
with
work.
you and work on that. And I guess that's it.
Thank you very much, and I'd just like to mention, I'd like to thank everybody who participated in Let It Fly, because it does make a difference in our towns, our town roadways. We did a mile of road out by me that day, and I didn't think it was that bad. It didn't look that bad, and I was shocked at the amount of garbage that we actually collected. It was crazy.
I don't have the total number of volunteers that we had, but it was some regulars, like Heidi, and some new people too. And the new people would go any place we sent them. It was wonderful.
And I would just encourage all of our residents that Let It Fly's not just one day a year, it's feel free. I mean, just keep our town looking good. LDC, Andrea.
Okay, fireworks account, there's $695 as of yesterday. Want to report that. Thank you letters have been sent out to contributors who wrote checks to the TLDC fireworks account. The community garden account has $804 in it. There are pledges from Sullivan Renaissance for $500 for drip irrigation system. Norcross has pledged $500 for a shade pergola. Western Sullivan Public Library has board approval giving Tuston Heritage Community Garden permission to construct a shade pergola to function as an outdoor classroom and rest station for active gardeners. Deer fencing system is being installed and planting will commence this weekend. Garden committee has been formed consisting of a master gardener, town and local volunteers, and Big Eddie farm stand crew. Treasurer Matt Solomon has resigned. I gave you guys that letter. Next TLDC board meeting to address elections, Paris reporting and other business will be announced shortly. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
Andre, I've got a couple of questions for you. I had sent out a couple emails to, have a meeting between last meeting and this meeting with, all the stuff that was going on with the TLDC. And I sent out the first email about 13 days ago. Then I sent out another email 2 days ago. And actually, Jane and I met this morning here in the town hall. But, why did we not have a meeting when there's so much going on?
Based on the last board meeting on the 9th of April, that it was important for Andy Arias to speak first and address the board publicly, and people could ask questions, and then, we can go from there.
Well, Andy didn't do, that was a known fact that he didn't do any accounting for the TLDC, and that's why I wanted to meet before this meeting, because I did get some quotes from him about that, and get an idea of that, and then also, we need to get, first of all, the structure, which is good. Now we have some information on that. But, I understand that you met with Eileen, so I think that it's not, the TLDC should be meeting every month in between board meetings, irregardless, okay?
We need to set that calendar.
Yeah, and especially if a town board member is asking to meet between meetings, especially with what we have going on. Now, let's get into why I wanted to meet today.
Ned?
Yes.
Can we
Where
just,
is the community garden now?
excuse me, I think this is TLDC
This is my report.
No.
information. She gave a report.
This is about TLDC information here, and we need to have, if you're making a report, I'm a board member, you will not stifle me, and I will speak.
No,
Now,
excuse me.
Now, so, I've talked to Jean Redmond from the IRS, and she's a nice lady. And there's a program out there. If you voluntarily enter this program, somebody was talking about hitting the big red button. It's not a bad thing. These people are not bad people. They don't want to hurt you. Now, last month, Mr. Clementi said that these individuals were independent contractors and they never got a 1099. Then he said they were paid volunteers. And I've maintained that these guys were employees and they need to have the proper deductions taken out of their pay. So I called up the IRS, and there's a volunteer program that we can enter into as a town and the town board, now that we know for sure that this TLDC is an extension of the town board. I would like to put it out that we, the town board, enter into this program. I'll just read it real quickly. The program that I referred to on our phone call today is the Voluntary Classification Settlement Program. You can go to www.irs.gov and type that in a search box, and there's quite a bit of information available. The program allows you to pay a small percentage of the tax that you would have been due in previous years. However, if the town decides not to enter into this agreement, then they will do an investigation. And then the program's out the window. So if there is a liability, and I definitely believe there is, regardless of what Mr. Clementi's take on the thing is, that then we'll be paying fines and penalties and interest. So I put it to the board, and I'd like to make a motion that we entered into this agreement with the IRS and get this issue resolved.
Ned, this is the first I've heard of this. You have not brought this to the board's attention, nor
We-
my attention.
We were trying to have a meeting, I asked for 2 different meetings, and we would not meet, so I really couldn't bring it to the board's attention until the TLDC met. And the TLDC didn't meet, so now here we are.
Well, we would need, I for one, I need more information before I pass a resolution on it.
Okay,
If
so
you could
let me
forward
get-
that to the board,
Okay,
please?
all right, sounds
I
good.
was never notified of any meeting.
I sent out the emails.
I never got it.
Well, I sent out
Well,
the
you're
emails.
elderly and you probably didn't notice.
James got the emails.
It wasn't a meeting set.
What's my email address?
Oh, I don't know, Ed. I have to go into my thing.
Do you have the right one?
That could be a problem, Ed.
Well, then if you have the wrong one, I won't get them.
Well, if you would do me a favor, and I know you have my email, just send me an email, and I'll have your right email, and I'll correct it in my glossary here. So anyway, so that's what I'd like to say. And as far as the one other question I have for the TLDC for Andrea, in the one correspondence I have from one of the parents, you had written back to him, said that there's a grant pending last year because they didn't get paid in time. Did the TLDC? Yes.
What are you, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, this individual wasn't paid. The TLDC, this individual worked for the TLDC for the community garden. The parent wrote to you, and you sent him an email back that they weren't paid for a few weeks because there was a grant pending, and you had to wait for the grant money to come in.
Right.
Did the TLDC receive grant money?
Yes, we did. We received a grant. Well, the TLDC didn't receive that. The town received that.
The town did, okay. Okay. And do you
For
know
the TLDC.
For the TLDC.
and how much money was that for, do you remember?
That was for $2,500.
Okay. All right, well, that concludes that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Old business, update on the Interstate Bridge, PennDOT meeting. I did meet with Carla Medora, she's the engineer and project manager for this, for the Interstate Bridge project. We had we discussed some parking issues as you come off the bridge and into town on Main Street. I spoke with Glenn. Glenn and I are both gonna go down and meet with Carla and discuss which parking, we're gonna unfortunately lose a couple of parking spots down there probably. They're not gonna have the truck swing and whatnot when they make it a one-lane bridge. We're gonna have problems coming off of there, so we're gonna have to lose a couple parking spaces. So I spoke with Glenn, we're gonna get together with her and we'll get some no parking signs up or paint the pavement, in those areas, so that it's a little more obvious.
Is that only during the week or the weekend too?
It'll be
It'll-
7 days a week.
It'll be 7 days a week.
Make
Yeah.
sure whatever we do is up to
When is
federal traffic
when is
standards.
construction
Yeah.
gonna begin?
Consult maybe,
You
I
know,
can-
when-
Hold on, Bernie.
consult maybe with Donnie, cause he still knows the, standard from the
Yeah.
years in the sign
Yeah,
shop.
so-
And, yeah, talk to him, or else call down the sign shop, cause there's very specifics on that. With setbacks for the signs and all sorts of stuff, else it isn't legal and you've got problems.
Yeah, so, but that's where we are on, parking. The, start date, she expects that they'll be starting construction in June, mid-June. They haven't received confirmation on their shipments yet of, materials, that's what they're waiting for, so she couldn't give me a start date. As soon as she has confirmation on that, then she'll be able to give me a start date.
When they installing the lights,
Don't know. She didn't have any of that information until she got confirmation that
Yeah.
their materials are actually gonna be on their way. She doesn't have
sooner
that.
we get done, the better off, and when they
Oh,
install the
yeah.
lights, yeah.
Yeah. Weight limits, and we had discussed the weight limits. They did have a meeting over in Pennsylvania, Ned, I don't know if you attended that or not,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there has been discussion. What they decided, I guess, is trucks that are overweight that they decided, okay, you're overweight and this is the weight restriction. They've decided each business can apply for a permit for each individual truck that they would like to have excluded from that, or exempt. So DOT will go over that, PennDOT will go over each application individually and either grant or deny permission for those trucks to cross. So, and she did stress to me that it is extremely important that overweight trucks not be crossing the bridge, because the integrity of the bridge is such that if it, it compromises the integrity of the bridge by an overweight truck going over it, and another car comes over it behind them, somebody could actually go through the bridge, and it could be perilous.
I think it's time law enforcement gets down here, I hate to say it,
I
and
agree.
start putting the scale vehicle down here.
Yeah.
Has it
I hate
gotten
to
that
say it.
bad, right? I mean, if it's that bad now.
Yeah, it is.
It had to have been that
And
bad
a lot of
before.
residents have reported to me that there's a lot of trucks going over.
It's an interstate highway, of course there is.
No. No, it stayed the same. Yeah. Ed?
Are they gonna address the fact that we have to get a sign up at this corner?
We did speak about signage also.
Because trucks get down, tractor trailer gets down here and then they
Yes,
turn left and
then
go down,
they're
and now they're
turning around at
trapped.
the feed mill because they're trapped down there and they're scared to go down the flats to turn around too. We did discuss that. I gave her some names at the county level to speak to about Bridge Street, to signage on Bridge Street, as well as, they can sign their side. The problem is, with New York State, and I asked for signage up on 97, coming down 52, because trucks coming down 52, or coming down, say from Berryville even. I said, put it before the interstate bridge in Berryville, and the same up on 97 this way, because if you're coming down with an overweight truck, you wanna know then that you can't cross these bridges down here. So that will give them an opportunity to say, okay, I can't cross the Narrowsburg Bridge, that's where I was headed, let me cross in Shahola, or let me cross upriver, yeah. So we're working on that. Part of the problem she described is New York State, PennDOT's in charge of the project, but New York State is responsible for half the funding.
Detour signs.
So they're responsible to do their signs. New York State says, well, we don't have money. We don't have this budget.
I mean, I pay no attention to them
So
anymore.
they're having some contentions there. So hopefully we can work that out and get some signage up and.
Yeah, the county's well aware of that, Bob's well aware
Yeah,
of it.
yeah, so I know she was gonna
discussion.
contact them, and hopefully the county should help us out, at least with the ones on Bridge Street, and the ones on 97, I can't be sure about, but we are working on it. So.
Carol, with all the detour signs, I mean, nobody's gonna pay any attention to them anymore.
Yeah, 'cause
No
there's so much.
information, and you're all over the place.
There's so much, well, hopefully it will help some trucks out, I mean, they should
What-
be paying attention to their
Detour-
roads.
I know, but a
No, well,
detour, but it doesn't tell
Not
you
just
where
a
to detour.
detour, if it says, I mean, I'm asking specifically, like the Narrowsburg, Pennsylvania, Narrowsburg
Right, it
Beach,
doesn't
like
tell
the
you where to
interstate
go
bridge
or
in
where to be.
Narrowsburg has a weight restriction, and this is what it is. So
My
hopefully,
question about the condition of it is, if it's that bad now, then it's long overdue. Why haven't they done something about it?
Are they still gonna have Riverfest where they close Main Street?
we haven't gotten that far.
Think about it. You think what's gonna happen?
Just have one side of the road, just don't park on one side of the road.
I mean, where are they gonna go? Main Street is closed. You got half of the bridge closed. The only street you have is Bridge
Bridge
Street.
Street.
Better use your driveway.
Okay, I'm ready. Tolls will be charged. And as far as the weight limit, I see trucks that are heavier than they should be going. What's the guy gonna do once he's there?
And hopefully some of the signs don't disappear like they have in the past around town.
Yeah.
Whoever decides to take signs down, there should be some prosecution
prosecute.
involved.
If we can find.
Unless they're election signs.
Okay, so moving on.
No, wait a minute, Carol, wait a minute.
I know.
I also met Senator Lisa Baker over in Pennsylvania, put together a group of trucking companies, the larger trucking companies in the area, and we met with all of the PennDOT people that are actually involved from not just here, but Dunmore and Harrisburg, and the actual engineers that did make the rate reduction on the bridge. And so we came up with a bunch of ideas we thought were great ideas, because we said to them, we said, listen, you can have 3 tractor trailers on that bridge at 54,000 pounds apiece, okay? Or you could have a number of individual trucks. So what's the difference? I said, we were saying if you put a stoplight and just let one truck go at a time. So we put a bunch of ideas out on the table and also plating. And so Mitch, who's the local, engineer from over in Honesdale, sent me this email today. The design had looked into what was requested as far as plating the bridge. It was determined this was not a feasible option because the grading was not the only compound on why the bridge was posted. Okay, so he goes into some other stuff, but he says, we feel the time lead for the plates, stringers, and additional decking may extend the length of the contract instead of reducing it. We feel the best option is to accelerate the contract. We're working with the contractor to see how much we can save by working longer hours and more days. So in other words, what they're gonna do, they're talking about putting on double and triple shifts and then working through the weekends and stuff, because their original completion date was September 6th, I believe. And so they're trying to move that way up because it's costing local companies tons and tons of money. We figure about an extra $250 per trip to go around and do this and do the detour. And quite frankly, the road, the bridge up in Callicoon was posted. All of a sudden, that posting just all of a sudden disappeared. Now it's back up to full weight again. That's why the New York State DOT is not enforcing it, because there's some shenanigans going on. So the best thing we can do is get it done, fixed quickly. But I can tell you that in Pennsylvania, there's a real understanding of the need to get it fixed, and they're doing everything they can.
Thank you.
The bridges over the river in Damascus, they're gonna feel the brunt of this. They're gonna all of a sudden have a problem because they never expected traffic
Yes.
like this.
You can't even get tractor trailers. You have to go all the way up to Callicoon, turn around, and get tractor trailer back down.
Right.
Down past the through point, Calhoun,
Right.
up Main Street.
Okay, thank you very much. Court days update. We've done a bit of research. We were waiting for the plans to come back. Bruce, thank you for getting those back to us tonight. And Ed Jackson had contacted the company. I believe you spoke with Norm about it.
Yeah.
And we got the prices back
And that was a
for a unit that's, you can get them online. They're kind of modular units. Like, quote came back as $14,206. So that's clearly
That's out.
not an option.
Or 16,000.
Or
If you want to
16,000.
raise it 6 inches.
For yours?
Yeah.
those, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
Can we get some local people to do it a lot cheaper?
I've been
What?
trying to
We've
get
tried,
quotes.
Bernie.
So now we've got
For a
the
year.
design. We're gonna go out. We just need it split in 3 pieces. So
That's all
if
right.
you want to work on that and
Sure.
get the
Big
specs to
opinion.
Carol, and here I'll give you
Get a
these.
bid out? Oh, good.
If you can just split it up into 3 pieces, I think we figured 18 feet here and 3 pieces
Can
of
I
6
consult with the
feet
engineer
each.
to do the plans?
There you go.
Yeah, all
And
right.
we just want it on wheels, so
All
that
right.
way we can move it off
No
to the
problem.
side so people aren't
How high?
Gonna weigh
sitting
it.
on it and dancing on it and whatnot.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah, not a problem.
And then we'll get that out to bid and, well, not to bid, but to quote. It's not gonna require bid, but, just to get 3 different quotes on it at least, and, hopefully we can get this built.
I'll
And
pursue that other one we looked at, in that other catalog too, you said.
Yeah.
yes, yeah, you and, I think Karen did some research on that as well, and, there are some options there we can look at. We'll look at that all when, we get the other quotes for construction and weigh our options.
Oh, speaking of quotes, did we ever get anything back on the ramp?
No, did that go out? Nothing?
Red and the snow shoveling went out, nothing.
Okay,
Really?
so,
What do we wanna do about the ramp then?
okay.
Because we're in the season now, it may not be pushy, but if it's gonna get
Yeah.
done, it has to get done now.
I don't have that quote in front of me, do you?
Joe,
From-
probably
yeah.
$8,000.
Approximately 1,000?
8,000.
8,000, yeah.
Right. If you want to, I can go over and talk to him, see if I can get him to do it for the same price he quoted last year.
Do that, and then we'll put that on the agenda for next month.
All right, I'll go over
And
and
we'll
talk
get it
nice.
done. At least we advertise it, it's done, we've done
Yeah,
our
we've
due
done everything we
diligence.
can.
Yep, so, alright, so that'll be,
All right.
let me just put on here, June ramp. Let's see. Ag and Markets, the dog kennel, draft bid quote, also discussion on that. Apparently they think that the shed that was built, that could be modified and used. I don't really see how.
Mike spoke to me about that too.
And
I think it could be.
it needs, I mean, some of their requirements are either linoleum or concrete flooring. I mean, so if you wanna take, you'd have to take the thing apart.
Where's the one go?
And water.
Oh, the
I
door
think-
down in my plant?
Yeah,
That thing was good for a bonfire.
The old highway shed.
Oh, the
What are they
old
talking
highway,
about?
wait, what
Yeah.
shed are we
Oh,
talking
the old
about?
highway shed.
Yeah, that's
No.
what he was talking about.
The old highway shed is down on the
Down the
flats.
flats,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm using that for
Yeah.
storage.
Oh, I don't think that's a good idea for kennel.
You don't want it.
That
We're
thing
in
is
the middle
barely
of
good
a
enough for
flat, a
storage.
residential area. We
Well-
talked before about putting it up by highway.
I know.
Yeah, I think,
Alright.
yeah, I would rather it up there where
Alright.
there's not the population that you have in town here.
Mhm.
That's just,
Well, that was one
Right for
thing he
complaints.
floated by me like that.
yeah, okay.
So
Yeah.
that
Well,
was
we
part of
approved
the
$1,000 to build that concrete pad for
Yes.
last,
I think
last
we're
meeting.
going to end up spending more
Yeah.
than that.
Well, I think so too,
Well, it's
but
just gonna be
it's
on
a start.
materials. We got water
I'll
and
take
sewer and
'em
highway to help us
Yes, you
out
would.
Yes, I
with the
would.
construction of it, so.
Yeah, it sounds like we're against a rock and a hard place from what I saw from the report.
Yeah,
I mean, what's it gonna be, just
I
concrete
think we're just
floor with,
going to have to
like,
get it done, and that's all there
chain
is
link
to it.
around it? With a couple poles?
no, you gotta,
No.
it's gotta be an actual structure for,
Right.
to house them. It's gotta be heated,
Heated.
has to have electric.
Mm-hmm.
So a little condo.
Drainage,
Yeah.
have to have drainage.
So we're gonna have loose dogs all over the
And
place.
then kennel
We don't
runs
wanna
out
do
the
more.
back with
Right.
the chain link,
They had to have an exercise area and everything else.
yeah.
When does this have to be done by?
Tomorrow.
Yesterday.
We don't- Yeah, I mean,
The summer.
I mean,
as
it's
soon
something's
as
gonna
we
be,
can,
it's gotta be done this summer.
yeah.
I put him in touch with Biaggi too, a friend of mine does animal rescue, and he's going to see what he can do to help us out on some of this,
Okay,
see if he can find
okay.
so.
I mean, I don't know if we
I
wanna
mean,
go
this
to other
first,
towns
this
and look at
next
other.
month and a half is
kennels.
gonna be hectic for the highway department.
Yeah,
I mean, rainy days or something like that, definitely, but
right. So, but you gentlemen, we're all gonna come up with a plan and
Yeah,
whatnot.
let's
and
sit down and talk about it.
Ag and Marcus Carroll did obtain the specs from them, so
Mhm.
based
Okay,
off of
we
their
got specs.
specs,
All right,
it
all
would
right,
just
I'll talk to Mike. and then we'll
behoove us to
together.
get this done. Okay?
Yeah.
So
You
I'm
could
sure
mo-
Mike
you
would be,
could modify a 20-foot ocean container to do that too.
okay.
The easiest way to go.
That urine though would eat that right up, Ed.
Huh?
That
Oh,
urine
that's
would eat
true
that
too,
right
yeah.
up. The urine would eat that right up.
No, you pour concrete floor inside it.
Yeah, but he's talking about the walls there.
No, you get a fiberglass one then.
Well, we'll look at everything.
Yeah, we'll look at our options and see what we can do, so. And let me know when it's built.
how about an old car, we take the tires off, heat, air conditioning, the whole 9 yards, windows?
Dogs love it, they stick their head out it.
Well, you can
Old
Good
school must be
business.
even better there,
ride
Glenn.
around all day.
You make good horsepower.
You need a companion once in a while.
I know.
Discussion
Size
regarding
Tavern is available.
the energy consortium. Basically, I talked with Carol Roy, I spoke with Brandy, we're gonna meet this, coming Thursday at 5, I believe 5. And, but in the meantime, I'd like to just, pass this tonight that we can, that approve for me to, join the consortium. It's no commitment of any kind, all it is, basically for us to have information, energy savings, information and grant information, any buying power that can be done through the consortium. You can get a bunch of towns and whatnot together. You can save more if you're ordering something that other places are ordering. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I gave you more information on that this evening, but there's, there's no strings attached. So,
Does
Yeah.
NYSEG or any place else like that give us any kind of benefits for doing this?
Let me,
Other besides lower energy?
not for this.
No
Norm,
programs?
Norm, NYSEG just came into my facility, and they're replacing all of the fixtures in my facility. And they figure in 5 years, we'll save $18,000, and it's about a $3,000 or $4,000. And they're doing it for New York State wants to conserve energy, so it's pretty cool. And they have independent contractors coming in, so they're coming in soon. But if you have a bunch of flashing bulbs or any type of building, they will NYSEG, reach out to NYSEG. They have a program that will, the bigger you are, the more you
They
save.
do. Unfortunately, the municipal program has ended. They were doing the audits, the energy audits for free. That has ended, so we were not in time for that when we started this last year. But I will probably have on the agenda next month. I'd like to switch all the lights in the town hall at least, and probably all our town buildings to T8s rather than the fluorescent that we have now.
NYSEG, there's nothing from the state for that anymore? You sure?
Not right now. There could be NYSERDA grants. I don't know. I mean, we'll
Right.
certainly. I mean, if there's a grant available, we'll be applying
But
definitely.
these guys actually bring in their own, so NYSEG, you just sign the contract, and
Yeah,
they bring in their
I
own
know.
contractors.
I know, and they do that for other businesses, private businesses, and for residents. But the municipal program has ended, so they don't do that for free. It would cost us money to have them come in and do that.
Oh,
So,
wow.
but yeah. That's what we were hoping for, but, and, okay, so number 11, motion to authorize the town clerk to advertise town cleanup day. Can I have that in the form of a motion?
I'll move that.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Number 12, snow removal bids. We did not receive any bids, so we need to put it out again,
Either that or go to another option,
which would be?
a part-time employee. Glenn and me have already just had a discussion on this, and I think Dominic, you were in that discussion too. That might be the smartest thing for us going in the long run.
You know, Highland hires a seasonal guy to do their lawn mowing down there. In fact, it's Jeff Barnes that works for the highway department. His father works there because they mow the cemetery and they got some other things they mow. Maybe it's to the point the town should think about something like that as a part-time person. I think we sat down, we figured out the payroll would be right around 11,000 a year.
Yeah.
Is that it? Something like that? If we could get somebody that would be interested in doing something like that.
There'd be no benefits or anything, right?
Right.
No.
For the employee.
Now, why wouldn't that be a 1099 person?
Chuck, I'd appreciate if you'd hold your comments till the end. You
Oh,
keep
I'm-
interrupting the board's business.
I'm the
and-
only one
Thank you.
that needs to wait till the end?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, we talked about doing that and structuring it so we could probably rotate him around between different little agencies and stuff like that. If he needed some temporary help, Dominic, for a day, we could rotate him into that and just have him at a flat rate of say 100 and a quarter a day, something like that.
All right, let's
With
think about
numbers, I'm
this.
just saying, grabbing a number out of wherever.
All right, you wanna advertise one more time, or do we wanna discuss this next month?
Put it out
or-
one more time, see if there's another bite, and then we can go forth with the other.
With
Okay.
that employee, they would have to punch in and punch out every day, right? So you
Yeah.
would do an hourly rate,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know, I just hate to give them $125 a day.
No,
Let's
no,
say
no, that'd be a
doesn't feel
punch in,
good.
punch out.
Leaves or whatever.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
it'd
a
be-
I
job,
don't
generally
think
something
it wouldn't be
like
that much anyway, Ned,
No.
'cause I think we were figuring something like $15 an hour, right?
Yeah, that's what we were.
$12 an hour, $15 an hour.
Yeah.
You'd
And
use it
they-
if you needed on overtime or whatever, and.
And they wouldn't actually be any overtime for it, and
No,
I just wanted to punch in
Right,
and
but I
punch
mean,
out,
if
that's
you
all.
needed,
Yeah, if you need an extra flagman even for a day.
yeah,
so.
Like Charlie Wheelan, doesn't Charlie Wheelan do that?
Yeah,
kind of stuff, yeah. He
Yeah.
does it for the water and sewer,
How do you pay Charlie?
by the hour.
yeah.
There you go.
That's all.
Yeah.
We'll do the
He's
same
15
thing.
an hour.
Yeah.
He cuts grass, so
But-
that's I need him.
Sometimes
The flag.
having to punch in and punch out is very time consuming. If you've got a job out where
Especially
somebody
for Charlie,
lives,
it's time
it's a
consuming.
waste of time. Like, I mean, they can sign it, well,
I just want, point is that we keeping track of their hours, Eileen.
Yeah, that's all.
The supervisor could do that.
Okay, so, anybody wanna move number 12?
You want me to bid again?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll make the motion, and we'll fit it one more
Okay,
time.
Norm, can I have a second?
Aye.
Ned, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number 13, anybody wanna put that in form of a motion to join the Energy Consortium?
Oh, I'll do it.
I'll
Norm,
second that.
Tony, second, can I, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Number 14, to motion to appoint Dorothy McCormick clerk to the grievance board for the 2013 grievance period. In the past, this clerk has been paid $250 a year, so
Well, Carol, who's Dorothy McCormick and who stepped down or why do we need somebody else there?
it's
She's
just a
been doing
normal,
it for about 5 years
Yeah.
already.
this should actually probably be put on the organizational meeting. It
Yeah.
was just, it's never been on the organizational, we've always appointed right before grievance time, so,
Well, how many, Kenny, did somebody step down? Is that why
No.
she's just
no,
been there?
it's an annual
Been there for
appointment.
5 years probably.
How many people are on the grievance board?
3.
And it's you, this lady,
That'll be the second.
right? And who else?
She's not on the grievance.
Clerk.
A clerk to the grievance board.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, how many people are on the grievance board?
3,
And they're appointed people,
yes.
each year?
No.
No, they have
They're appointed
terms.
for a term of 6 or 7 years.
Okay,
5 years or so.
and none of them are coming up this year?
And I don't know about that. Carol takes care of that.
That's organization meetings. so
Yeah.
When are we gonna have that?
First of the year.
First, yeah.
But, wait, listen to what the man just said.
I know.
We may have people coming up, you better check into that. that are, you know, coming up to be replaced that are not appointed anymore on the grievance board.
It's gonna do an end at the first of the year.
Yeah, that's a matter of business for the organizational meeting in
So you know
January.
that's what, but we
Oh,
know
yeah,
that that's
we
not
have
a problem.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
the terms, not a
Let's put
problem.
her on that from now on.
Okay.
too.
So, can I have that in the form of a motion that she be appointed for $250 a
I'll
year?
move.
Tony, can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Ned? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Gerda Buhner, just explain this, for those of you who weren't here last year. She used the town hall, you got both the letters in your packets. Basically, she just wants to do the same thing, use the hall at $5 per usage just to, basically wash out her equipment and refill with water.
How many
I'll
times
make that
did she use it
motion.
last year?
I don't know,
Did she use
Carol,
it at all?
not much.
No.
She didn't use it much.
She got
Yeah.
started later in the season.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
twice
Yeah.
that I can recall.
Yeah,
Well, we did it last year, why not this year?
so we didn't have any problems with it. so-
No.
No.
And I don't see.
Yeah, I'll make
Okay,
that.
I'll second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion.
Carol, oh, go ahead. I just
motion-
I just have a question that, this $5 usage fee, where do you account for that in our, you know, in our financial report? You know, like all these little fees, you have license fees, you have marriage fees, you have this $5 usage fees.
Oh, some of it goes to the town clerk, others go directly to the bookkeeper, some like planning and whatnot. Karen, what line is the revenue reported on?
Well, this goes through the town clerk.
Right, so, and then that would be in the town clerk's report, and then that money comes in, and on, you wanna know on this report?
Well, yeah, I mean, Carol, do you put a report together, and also Karen, every month of the monies that come in on each different line item?
Yes, and that report has, a percentage goes to the town.
Okay.
A
Right,
percentage has to go to the state, and a percentage has to go to ag and markets.
right.
Wouldn't it be nice, though, to have that on our monthly report, so we can just see that money coming and going out?
Any revenue is on the reports that Karen gives you.
Okay, I'm
It's
looking
on it
for it.
under income.
All right, let's look at that.
Missed NCS.
Can you show me where that's
Me
at,
too.
please, Carol?
I didn't look at it.
Me too.
It's being taped.
Can you show me where that other income is?
Don't know that I brought my profit and loss statement actually with me.
Okay, here you go.
You want a slushie?
Yearly income,
That's yearly.
You want everything. Just don't.
Party fund.
yeah, yearly, it would be under the yearly income, correct? That would be,
I don't see line items for all these things. I mean, who keeps track of all this money coming in and going out? I don't know how much
no,
money it is.
okay, wait, no.
Clerk report is not in that,
No, it would be under the town clerk's,
but she just submits that to you, Carol.
correct. So, I guess what Ned is asking, is that on a report that we receive? The income from the town clerk? Is that on one that the board receives? No. Okay, so if you'd like, I mean,
Yeah,
Carol would
nice.
be more than happy to give you a
I see you have
copy of it.
marriage licenses on there, but I don't see it for, you know, just different line items for each one of these things, so there's accountability,
Might be
that's
under
all.
miscellaneous, that might fall under miscellaneous. I know when I was town clerk, the BAS program has a line for miscellaneous. You have, marriage certificates, planning, zoning,
Et cetera.
No, there's no planning and zoning,
there used to be.
not anymore. There's
Okay.
marriage, dog, that's up to the amount.
Yeah, and
Right.
that $100 check we get from the Arts Alliance, I'd like to see that entered in, so we know where
That's a whole different thing, that's nothing to do.
Yeah.
So that would be on, everything that comes to town clerk's on the town clerk report though, so.
Okay, that would be, I mean, that would be a good thing to have some accountability, let's put it that way, so that we know where this money's coming from and going to.
Okay, Carol, would you be willing to just scan and email that report to the board each month?
You have no place to put it on your town report?
Pardon?
There's no place on the town reports where that's reported for the board to know?
Yeah. Oh, on this report?
Yeah, when you
Yeah.
go through the
It's not-
monthly bills and the payments, it's gotta be on that.
I just went through the monthly
That's
bills,
what
I didn't see any of that in the
I thought
monthly
it was
bills.
on.
And maybe they didn't have any this month.
No, just, yeah.
Would that be in the monthly bills then, Carol?
It's not gonna be in the bills, no.
I know, but.
I know, but,
Bills are the bills.
I know,
Yeah.
but
It
maybe,
would be income.
Yeah.
I know
It's
it's
on the
income, but
income.
maybe you could put it in there, and that way somebody's looking at it. What's the board think?
It should go on your reports you get every month.
Yeah, I thought it would.
Yeah, if you could break them out, that'd be nice.
A monthly income report, Karen? Yeah,
Great.
yep.
It's a good idea. Thank you.
Motion to budget modifications as follows. Those are listed. I'll move that. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion to appoint, discussion on this. Basically, yeah, we had the discussion on this basically in the
Yeah.
letter. You've all got his packet of information. Mr. Peters has extremely well qualified. He also has offered to do the training for all the bailiffs in the town of Tuston free of charge. Because it helps him out, it helps us out, and solves a big problem for us and saves us quite a bit of money. So,
Sounds good to me.
I will move that. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And we do not have anything for executive session?
I have something I'd like to bring up, Carol. In
That
view of all with the grants and everything that are going forth by the town, I think as an overwatch thing, that any grants that we're gonna have to participate in, that we're gonna be backing up with our funds, that those grants, before they're tendered, should be approved by this board. So we know exactly what we're extending ourselves into, so monetarily we can pre-plan and, you know,
When
have them
anything's done by
understand.
the board, we've traditionally done that.
But anything that any other agency that they're doing, that we're putting the money up for even for a temporary basis. I'd
So,
like to see a more
like-
formal process, so we're aware of what we're, what our,
applying for?
yeah, and what our,
So you want approval for anybody to apply for the grant on
that
behalf of
the
the
town funding's involved in any way we're managing or
Okay.
backing it up.
So basically, anything TLDC does, I guess,
I think
is-
he's referring to the Main Street grant that
and-
you got for $20,000.
No, it's just all grants
Is that
across the
money you have
board.
to pay
If
for
we're,
upfront
if we're
and get
putting
reimbursed?
forth money,
Right.
if we're putting forth money, we have to cover that money for any period of time. I think we
Yeah.
should be well aware of it.
Yep, I agree.
The
Or-
TLDC grants
I'd like
were,
executive
you
session
didn't have.
for-
Didn't have
purpose
matching,
of-
right,
That's
so,
not an issue with the two.
Right.
that just went out.
right.
But I'm
So-
saying anything we have.
Any
to-
grants, you mean
Yeah.
any grants that has any impact on any of the town buildings,
Yeah.
properties, or,
Yeah, we should have a say
yeah,
over
that's a
what's
good idea.
going on.
Transparency in all the process.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I'd like executive session
For,
for,
Okay.
we need a reason.
I'd have one if I could pick it up.
Just say
So
employee or
that's
something.
An
Employment
employee,
history
yeah, it's
Of a
employment.
particular individual?
It's
Well, you can't say that, Carol.
no, that's not what
Pardon?
it's
You
about.
can't tell if it's a specific employee out loud.
Just
No,
say
we
it's
can't
employee.
say the name, that's the purpose, that's in the,
Right,
that's in
exactly
the open
right.
meetings law, for a particular
So she
individual.
said an employee, so I guess we'll go with that.
The employee, okay.
All right, but let's,
Well, to
before we do
discuss an
that,
employee isn't a legal reason, so to discuss the employment history of a particular individual is a legal reason.
but we have Norm's idea on the floor here, so let's, what are we gonna do with that?
I don't think anybody had an issue with it, so I mean,
No, I'll-
anybody who wants to
I'll make the
apply for it, I
motion.
mean, anybody
Well,
on the
the only
grant.
thing is timing. If a grant is learned that there's an opportunity to apply for a grant and we had a last minute notification.
Well, then we'll have to call a quick session, that's all there is to
Okay,
it.
Yeah, we can call an emergency meeting.
Yeah.
okay, as long as you understand that
I'll make the
sometimes there's a
motion.
timing issue.
I'll make the motion then.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Does this mean if I do anything and I get, tied into grants anyway, I gotta let you guys know up front about this?
Yeah.
Let us approve it first.
Because right now, I applied for permits from the DEC for putting pipes in, and, I'm waiting to hear back from it, but I got, in fact, the pipes I gotta replace up in Perry Pond, they wanna, I'm not sure what this entails or anything yet, I just talked to them briefly, but the DEC's got some grant money available towards doing modified, doing a better system than what's there for the same price, so it don't cost us any more than what our initial cost would be.
Approved.
Second.
So, that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
definitely.
I'll make a motion that you're authorized to pursue that grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Awesome.
Okay, Eileen made a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment history of a particular individual. May I have a second?
Aye, a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Evidently, I called an executive session and I shouldn't have.
Which we
Your
found
heart's in the
out.
right
Hey,
place.
I've never done
It's
it,
just
I
something
wanted
to be
to try it
discussed
once.
in public and not in executive session.
In what has happened in the past, and nobody has been in the position I have by having Ned here and Jeff here.
Jesus, Eileen.
I feel that I would like to have an alternate attorney that we can call when there's a conflict of interest. And I like him to be a named attorney. And that's about it. And this is nothing against Jeff, nothing against Ned, nothing against anybody else who has a conflict. It's just, I think it'd be a lot easier for us all.
Do we have an attorney now? Do we have an actual alternate attorney on the books?
We do not.
Okay.
Well, my question is to Eileen is, do you think that there's a conflict of interest right now, since Councilman Lang is on the board for the end of the year? So from, say, June all the way through the end of December, do you think that there's going to be a conflict of interest at each and every meeting for Mr. Clementi and Mr. Lang?
You have never sat here.
No, that's my question.
I'm saying,
If you want Mr. Clementi to sit here, that's
Excuse me.
fine.
I don't know. That is not that's not the issue. The problem is the possibility exists, and that's not a big deal. We're not paying anybody extra money. We're not giving out money that we don't have. We're not going into the budget. We're just saying, if it calls for it, if Mr. Lang has a question, an attorney question, that he does not have to go. He should be going to somebody board approved.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
And I think also the record speaks for itself. As everybody knows, Mr. Clementi advised this town and the previous board to take action against myself personally for a signage, just 2 different signage issues and a number, I think 6 different violations of the zoning law. The town is now in a very precarious position because, as a result of Mr. Clementi's advice, the town had to rescind both actions, and they were criminal actions. I was facing a Class B misdemeanor, and civil actions, a $96,000 fine. Mr. Clementi also represented me in my divorce, which lasted 8.5 years, while he was prosecuting me. So Mr. Clementi has some real issues, and I have some real issues with Mr. Clementi. But no, excuse me.
No,
but more so,
Mr.
Clementi also. Mr. Clementi, excuse me. No, excuse me.
Order.
I don't. No,
Mr.
I am talking. I am talking.
Speaking
I don't care.
as a
I am
chair.
talking. I don't care.
You are making accusations.
I am telling you that Mr. Clementi has led this town
here.
in a very and left this town in a very precarious position because of his own poor judgment and poor legal advice to this town, and he continues to do it. And it's wrong.
I compose my thoughts. I don't feel that it's fair to make accusations and discuss litigation when the attorney is not here to defend himself.
I've said the same thing while he's here, Carol. This is nothing new.
Fine.
I've said the same thing to him while he's sitting right over there.
The reason, as long as you brought it up, the reason why the town had to cease our pursuit of that particular litigation was due to the fact that there were 2 final drafts written of the zoning rewrite. The one I had, the one Jeff Clementi still has in his office, had fines and penalties in it. That's what he had to go by. We later found out, this whole board assumed that we had fines and penalties that we adopted. What actually was adopted, and when we spoke with Bill Palmer, our consultant for the zoning rewrite at that time, when we called Bill, he said he had sent another final draft out that was apparently adopted, that was given to the town clerk, and Supervisor Harrison had that copy. He said, I took out the fines and penalties schedule. You'll have to adopt that as a separate standalone schedule. She said, fine. He said, I'll forward this to Mr. Clementi. She said to him, and I quote, this is what Bill Palmer said.
She's not here.
Excuse.
She's not here to defend herself.
I'm speaking about Bill Palmer, and you will not interrupt me again.
She's not here to defend herself.
You will not interrupt me again. Thank you very much. What happened was, the board adopted something that we presumed had penalties and fines in it. We later found out we never adopted a standalone. She said, okay, so Bill Palmer said that Peg said we don't use him anymore. she never brought to the attention of the board, I was on the board, she never brought to the attention of the board that we needed to adopt a standalone fee schedule.
No, she didn't.
So, excuse me, I'm gonna finish.
That's fine.
And so, that's why we as a board had to stop the
But Carol,
litigation.
Don't you
We
know?
didn't know,
Don't you know that there was 2 separate actions against me in 2 separate courts? There was 2 separate
Correct.
actions, okay. You're only speaking about one of them. There was a totally different action against me for a whole other sign violation, of which this town only decided to prosecute myself for signage and zoning violations, and move to these things to a
I'm not
court
gonna get
based
into
upon Mr.
specifics,
Clementi's, yes, but the
except
bottom
for
line is
fines and
Mr. Clementi
penalties.
advised this board to do these things and they're wrong. He also advised this board at the last meeting, he said right here in front of us, those kids were not employees, they were 1099 independent contractors. Then in a later discussion, 2 minutes later, he says, no, wait, they weren't that. They were paid volunteers. Do you understand what paid volunteers are? So now, listen, this board can either, just like this other, he keeps on leading us down a poor road. And either now the town or the TLD is facing fines. They can either go with my interpretation of law layman or Mr. Clementi's, and I'm gonna win again. And so let's get some good legal representation in here, and let's, put all this stuff behind us and get an unbiased attorney that's going to serve this board, and so we can all work together and move forward together instead of all this.
So what you're saying is, what you're saying is really, you want to remove Mr. Clementi and then just bring in another attorney.
I would.
That is not my motion.
Now, that's what
That
you...
is
No, I
not
know
my
that.
motion.
You didn't say that, did you?
No,
But I'm not making the motion. I'm telling you what my
which is
preferences
why I
are.
made the motion.
I'll second your motion, Eileen.
What's the motion?
That we have
A
another
second
attorney as
on
a second,
staff.
An alternate.
that we can
Right,
call
a named
upon.
attorney.
A named attorney, I don't care who it is, I know a lot of them, I worked in court for
Right.
16 years, but, just so somebody can't go around, will say, I went to somebody in Brooklyn, and, you can't do this. You need some kind of continuity and some kind of, and we can't have these fights.
Now, what
We
I'm
can't
gonna-
waste the time of the town or the court,
Fine.
or mine, I
Now-
could be watching NCIS right now. Anyway.
Now, what I'm gonna say to my colleague, is this, what I said behind the doors. When Supervisor Harrison was supervisor of this town in 2011, when these violations happened, okay? Supervisor Harrison at the time, and it's in the record, it's on the minutes, okay, said that there might be a conflict of interest between Town Attorney Clementi and, at the time, Zoning Board Member Lang. So the town board at the time said, fine, okay? If there might be a conflict of interest between Mr. Clementi and Mr. Lang, we will get an alternate attorney, whose name was Mr. Kelly, out of Monticello. And that basically was approved by the town board at the time to have an alternate attorney, okay? And that happened. And in fact, Mr. Kelly rendered a decision, okay, about that sign violation, as did Mr. Clementi. 2 different attorneys, 2 interpretations saying the same thing, okay? And that's part of the jacket. So I don't have a problem getting a second opinion or a second attorney, but there better be a good reason why you want to remove Mr. Clementi and you have somebody else come in.
Nobody wants to remove Mr. Clementi.
Well, Mr. Lang does.
I certainly do.
You're right.
But
He
that's
just
not
said-
the motion.
But the person to your right just said he would like to.
But Tony-
Yeah, but he didn't make the motion, and he's just given his opinion.
But you just said
And
nobody.
we don't have to pay attention to his opinion
okay.
if
I would
it's
like
not a
to
motion.
speak, my opinion on this matter is what we've had before. If there is a conflict of interest, and I'm
Right.
not talking about a conflict of personality, a conflict of, I don't like this person, I disagree with this person, that's not the type of conflict where you go out and hire a different attorney. The conflict is a conflict of interest. If that were to happen, the board has at its disposal, we can go out and hire another attorney at that time if we need to.
Yes, but it's what, then we're gonna
understand
have a
you want
meeting to
somebody-
say, well, which attorney do you want? There's only 573 of them.
Sure.
Right.
We should have somebody on the docket who we would consider using.
Let me ask
That's
you a question. Do you
not a
have,
biggie.
do you have faith in Mr. Clementi to counsel us? Yes or no?
I do, but I do not want this kind of conflicts that are going on, and that's, something that I feel that,
So basically,
Well,
in
the
order to
conflict-
stop the
the
conflict,
conflict is, the conflict has
table.
arisen because
It's
a
not a conflict of
councilman
interest.
is suing the town.
God bless you.
No,
That's
I'm
why
not,
the
I'm not
conflict is
suing the
arisen.
town yet. I'm not suing the town yet. But Tony, Tony, you're absolutely wrong as far as Mr. Clementi's interpretation and intent as to how to proceed concerning my, I'm going to say, possible zoning violations. Mr. Kelly said I would negotiate with Mr. Lang and see if we can get the sign moved somewhere else. And Mr. Clementi said, no, I want to prosecute. And so Mr. Clementi started to prosecute, and that's when the whole thing started. So
Well,
there was
it
two
wasn't up
different
to-
interpretations in that, and I
Yes,
have
it was
both
up to the
letters.
board.
I've got both letters as well.
Okay, so there's two.
And right, Mr. Kelly wanted to negotiate
Yeah, exactly
with you, okay? But basically, he said that you were, if you take a look at that letter, basically,
I'm too old
net,
for
it
this
is
shit.
the same thing as what Mr.
No,
Clementi said.
I definitely disagree.
Yeah. At any rate, Eileen, my point is you're not gonna solve the conflict or the dissension that sits here by hiring
Well,
another
all I
attorney.
say, because of the conflict and dissension, it's made it obvious that there are occasions that we definitely need another attorney.
Do you think we've
That's
had one
all.
of those occasions to date?
Yeah, I do. I think there's been a conflict of interest, yes.
I have a problem with the simple fact is that he was representing Ned at one time and then he's pursuing Charlie. That should have been handed off to another attorney. I think myself, as far as an ethical violation, I think he had a problem there and he shouldn't have pursued it in that area because he had
He had
represented
explained
this.
to the board at that time
I
that he was
understand.
no longer representing Mr. Lang.
Well, I
That was
guess
a lie.
from what I understand, on record, he's still on whatever, but still, he had represented him in the past. And that's given him some, I think there has to be a break here someplace, at least in periods of time.
All right, this
Well-
is something I would like to get in here, that I am not, this has nothing to do with Ned Lang, or Norm, or Carol, or you. It's got to do with the fact that there should be somebody on file that we can say, well, this is gonna, it's not a big deal. We're not getting rid of Jeff, we're just saying, we don't have to sit down and go through 675 attorneys because we need an alternate, we need somebody. This is just having somebody online that we can call.
A backup.
This is not against or for anyone.
Well, my question is this. Now, you know that the town has already gotten, we've gotten served by Mr. Lang, correct?
Correct.
Yes or no?
Oh, wait a minute, that has nothing to do with this. I'll listen to you, but that has nothing to
Have
do
we
with
been
it.
served or not?
That's not, no, you haven't served. It's called notice of claim.
A notice of claim. Have we
It's not being served.
Do we have a notice of claim, Eileen?
I guess so, yes.
All right, and you know what the reasons that the litigant has said why we have a notice of claim, yes?
Yes.
Okay. If it goes to the next step, which I would assume it does, okay, would you want, okay, Mr. Clementi to defend the town?
Against Ned? No. I'll tell you why. I've worked for the courts for years. And I know that no matter how badly somebody thinks that they are not going to take a side, they do.
So you don't have faith in him defending the town against Mr. Lang's charges?
Yes, but I would have a problem that possibly there'd be too much,
Animosity.
animosity.
So what you'd like to
personal
do is-
interest, personal disinterest.
So what you would like to do is you'd like to just cut Mr. Clementi, find another attorney, and then bring that other attorney up to speed, which will take 2.5 years because that's how long this case has gone and the complexities. You just want to cut him loose. Is
We're
that what
not
you're
even
saying?
talking about the bloody case.
You're sure you? I'm talking
No,
about.
I am not.
I am, but you brought it
But
up.
I am not.
You
No,
brought it
I
up, though.
didn't. I just brought
Okay, so
this
to be
gentleman like to
clear,
speak.
we're not taking public comment right this second. So, let's just end this.
Bruce wants to speak.
You have a motion on the floor.
Call the question.
Norm,
I think you should.
Well, just could you repeat
Bruce.
what the motion is?
go ahead.
Is there a problem with a second opinion, Tony?
No,
That's what it looks like.
In fact, if you listen to what I said,
I'm listening to the whole thing. You have a problem with having someone else's opinion.
No, I don't. You were putting words in my mouth, Bruce. Thank you,
I'm
Bruce.
sitting
but
back here.
Bruce, I can speak for myself, thanks. Okay, you just put words in my mouth.
We're not gonna have an
In
argument.
Words in
2011,
my
in
mouth.
2011, Supervisor Harrison wanted a second opinion. She got a second attorney. The town board said, fine, we'll get a second attorney. I don't have a problem. I think I already said that.
Then what's the big deal with going with what she said?
Yes, and she was on the board for the year.
Because I think there's a reason why Councilman Falk decided to get a second attorney, and I wanted to know why she thinks she wants a second attorney.
Seems like you're digging into what she's saying.
I'm asking her a question.
Yeah, and she said it.
But it's not just about me and Mr. Clementi. It's
It's
about having an alternate that the board, listen, if there's a certain specialty, let's say we get into some sort of, and not only that, Tony, just FYI, I got news for you. If myself or anybody else sued this town for malpractice for malicious prosecution, NYMER would select their own attorney. Mr. Clementi, you wouldn't, I mean, why would the town, that's why the town has insurance. So Mr. Clementi would be out of the picture. So, but beyond that, why should we not have a second attorney, an alternate voice that we can go to when we feel there's a matter that needs to be talked about by another opinion?
Because there has to be a reason why.
That is why.
There was a
That's the
reason. Oh, no, you see, she said no, you said yes.
No, that's the reason why.
But you just said.
If the board feels they
There
want a
has to be a
second
reason.
opinion,
The
no, there
reason
doesn't
that-
have to be a reason.
There doesn't have to be a specific reason. Listen, I'll tell you what. There is, working with different attorneys, every attorney is versed in certain types of litigation. They're not all good at everything.
Right, and we've
Okay.
hired other attorneys in the past. We've hired Whiteman Osterhaus, Mark Sweeney, just to name a couple. I mean, we've hired many different, Cortez Landfill, that had completely different attorneys.
Oh, yes, and we had Goldstein for years before we decided that this is wrong.
Right.
We need somebody who's
But
versed in
my
this type of
point is,
litigation.
when an issue comes up that you
And I
need
went
somebody
down and went
else,
to that.
then you hire somebody else. It's
Then
not
why
that you
did
need
we
to have
have
somebody
Mr.
on
Kelly
here.
for a year? We didn't
Because
have him as a,
basically because Ms. Harrison used him without board authority, and she went to him for counsel outside of the board's
which is a
authorization.
perfect
Right.
example of what I'm trying to say.
and if the-
I don't want to have to go to somebody else without the approval of the board.
And if the
So
board
we
had,
have an
and
option.
if the board had
No,
used
no, no.
Mr. Kelly's opinion, the town would not be in the situation it's in now, facing
me,
the
let me
liability
finish.
that it does have now. So
Mr.
that's
Kelly,
a reason why
if
we
you
should
look-
have a second
excuse
attorney to
me,
get two
can I
opinions when there's an
finish,
issue.
Mr.
No, excuse me,
Lang?
I was in the middle of a sentence and you just jumped in. That doesn't work in
No,
my book.
you
okay?
jumped into mine.
No, I did not.
All right, let's just bring this to a vote.
Let's go. Let's call the question.
Excuse me, I was not finished. When Mr. Kelly was hired by this board, he was hired in the event that if Attorney Clemente had a conflict of interest in a specific case, that the board would then hire Mr. Kelly. It was not,
Exactly.
excuse me, it was not for any board member to say, hey, I don't get along with Mr. Clemente, so I'm gonna pick up the phone and call Mr. Kelly. That's not what the intent was. The resolution was extremely clear. And the board was supposed to make that decision at that time, any time that Mr. Kelly was to do any work performed for the board.
And that's the motion I brought. I did not bring Ned Lang into, I did not bring Norman in, I did not bring anybody in.
So
My motion was to have a second attorney on call, not somebody we're paying extra, not a penny's out for the town, just the option to have somebody if there was a conflict of interest, period.
Or a second opinion too. Let's say you had an
So we
issue.
will
Let's say you had some
interview
sort
attorneys.
of an issue, and you said the board said, you know what? Let's go out to both attorneys and see which way we might want to go on this. Let's say it was a zoning issue, and there was a real problem. There was a Second Amendment issue, and you go out to both attorneys for their opinion, and you proceed as the board felt best.
Well, are we all gonna work together, or basically, are we gonna have an alternate attorney?
Yeah.
And then you're gonna basically call up, like you called up the IRS, and then call up the attorney, and then get one attorney playing it off against the other?
Yeah.
Because I
No,
certainly
that
don't
is
want that.
not the purpose of it. And it's not that, hey, I don't like what
Don't, I can
Jeff's
call up any
saying.
attorney I want. I don't need the board's
How
approval.
about working together?
I'd like that.
that would be
Well,
Well,
that's
that's-
nice, and
to
everybody
say the
is
least.
bloody against everything everybody else says. It's two sides and it's ridiculous. By the way, I'm not on anybody's side.
You're
So
fine.
Punch him sometimes and
the
I,
motion is to go out to, well, can you come up with some bid specs? Some come up with some specifications and we'll put it in the paper.
Okay, I'll help you out with that.
No, you won't.
So, Eileen, when you do that, then next month you can bring that to the board and we will put it on next month's agenda.
Okay.
But let's rule on the motion. Let's have a vote.
Hire someone? We don't have
No,
anybody
no,
to
to-
hire.
Hire somebody.
Not to, no, to actively search for a second attorney for the board.
We'll
Not as-
authorize Councilman Falk to draft a proposal to be advertised in the paper to be discussed at next meeting
For an alternate legal.
for an
Okay,
alternate
but
legal
there's a motion
counsel.
and second on the floor on
Yes.
the original,
Thank you.
Right.
Thank
Eileen's
you.
statement, which was, have named alternate attorney available to town.
Yes.
We don't have a roster of.
No, it doesn't make a difference. It's that we then can proceed to put out the bid. This is exactly
Would you like
right.
to rescind that original
Well,
motion?
then you need to withdraw the motion if you're
No.
going to another one.
No,
No,
why,
well,
don't
withdraw
rescind
the
that.
original?
Don't rescind that, Eileen. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want.
What did I say?
All right, to have named alternate attorney available to town.
And what was the second motion that the informal one afterwards? Did you get that, Carol?
No,
Okay.
I don't have informal.
Well, there's only one motion on the floor.
That's the motion on the floor.
Let's talk about the motion on the
It
floor.
was suggested that you prepare, specs for lack of a better word.
Right.
That was the
To
second
do,
one.
to go into
For an
the
alternate.
paper.
Right.
But there was a motion and second on the second one, I did not hear. that.
Well,
No.
we can't have it on the floor.
So,
Exactly.
I think since this was Councilwoman Falk's idea, I think she should put together a proposal for this board. And then also make some feelers as far as 3 or 4 attorneys that this board can interview, okay? And it's done in a very logical, very objective way. I said, again, I don't have a problem with a second opinion. It's like if you break or you twist your knee and you want a second opinion from an orthopedic surgeon,
Right.
I want a second opinion before I go under the knife. So
Right.
I agree with that, but I'd like this done in a very objective way, just a proposal. That's all I'm asking for.
Exactly,
But- but-
that's all I proposed.
Right, but
Eileen,
first
I
you have
trust
to
you to do
have
the right
this,
thing.
this motion on the floor to go ahead and, before we can even come up with a proposal, because now we know that we are interested in interviewing a second attorney. So let's vote on this, on the motion that's on the floor,
can you
please.
reread that motion one more time, Carol? Please.
Have named alternate attorney available to town.
So the motion is to have a named alternate attorney to the town.
Available to the town board, yes.
Available to the town as an
The town.
alternate.
Well, forget the names, because the thing is,
Yeah,
you want a second, you want an alternate.
It's a
attorney
position,
for
we're just a
for this
position, it's
board.
not a person at this point, it's a position.
Yeah, there's no names involved or anything.
Right.
else.
Well, named, by name she meant specifically
Well,
a
Right.
person.
That's a
Right.
designation also to the person.
Right,
So-
but the point is, but besides that, she will also come up with a roster so that this board can interview and screen.
But Tony,
That shouldn't
Tony,
be part of the
this is a motion.
No.
That's
This is a
not part
motion,
of
that's
the
not part of that motion.
Okay,
Fine.
you have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Wait a
Nay.
minute, could I have a roll vote, a voice vote on that, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Norm is an aye, and this is on Eileen's motion as I read it?
Yes.
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 All right, so Norm's an aye. Mr. Ridley?
Tony?
Aye.
Okay. Carol?
Nay.
Eileen?
I don't have to vote, I already made the motion.
Yes. don't
Oh, I have
vote.
to say aye?
Yes.
Yeah, you got, whatever
I haven't
you
been
wanna
on it long enough, I don't remember those things.
do. Eileen?
Eileen, say aye, will you?
Aye, aye, aye.
And I'm an aye for sure.
The motion carries.
Yes.
That's to have what I read.
Yes.
Correct.
No rosters, no nothing. Just
Right.
have named alternate to, available
Right.
to the board. Okay.
And then Eileen's gonna work on the next part.
Now, what's the next part?
But that's not a motion, it's just a directive.
You don't need a resolution for that. Okay. Move into public comment.
As a member of the community and supporting the Tusten community garden, I would like to propose that the highway department help us move 1 truckload of compost donated by Skydog Farm located on Road 23 to the Tusten community garden in town.
I didn't hear it. She would like, Julia said she would like the Tuston Highway Department to possibly help out by transporting one load of compost
that was donated by
Skydog Farms, from Skydog Farms located on County Route 23 in Narrowsburg to the community garden back here.
I have an issue with that. I mean, that's using a public piece of equipment for private entity. I mean, can you come and move a couple loads for me next week, please?
But this is for the
I understand that, but that's public
but we're
funds.
losing the idea that this is a small town, and if we're gonna play all that stuff, really.
Listen, it's a commercial enterprise, I'm sorry.
It's for the TLDC.
It's for the TLDC.
Well, the TLDC hasn't had a meeting that's even a possibility at this point. I've called for 2 meetings this month, and I'm not aware of any need for this, and I'm on the board.
Tony, do you have any objection?
Go through that again, okay, please? 'Cause I'm just dwelling on this other issue, okay? What was the other, go ahead.
She wants them to the highway department possibly help out, move one load of compost that was donated by Skydog Farms to the community garden, which is run by the TLDC.
And you want basically the highway superintendent, am I correct, to use the equipment to go from one place to the other place? Is that what you want to do?
Correct.
That's what I'm asking, just to get some compost for the community garden.
Where is the community garden?
The community garden is here in town.
Well, it was moved last year back to Skydog Farm, so I'm interested to know.
This is nonprofit, am I correct? This is nonprofit and it's for the community, am I correct?
It's for the TLDC.
Right, it's for the TLDC.
Donation.
Right, okay, and you're making a point that this is a commercial enterprise and that, is that
I'm
what you're
not.
saying?
No,
I'm
he's talking to
for
me.
it.
He's talking to me. He's talking to me.
Right.
Oh.
Listen, the TLDC board has not met this month. I don't know where the community garden is. I don't know what the community garden needs were. Last year was here at behind the community hall. Then it was moved back to Skydog Farms. Okay?
No, it wasn't. It was
Yes,
just
it was.
an addition.
Eileen,
It was never moved.
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Excuse me.
Andrea, was it moved?
Andrea.
The library.
It was
That
what?
was not what you just reported at the last meeting, that you didn't have water there and you moved it back to your farm, and that's where it was lost. That's exactly what you said. And that's where the kids worked.
That's not what I said.
That's what you told us.
Okay, Norm, do you have a problem
That's
with
what
that?
you told us.
Yeah, I wanna see him
That's what you
work down
told
the
us.
roads, not hauling.
Wait, I didn't finish mine.
That's
Mine.
very simple.
I didn't finish.
Sorry.
This is, you asked my opinion on this thing. It's a community garden, Ned, Norm. I mean, you know, Eileen, you've been on this board longer than anybody on this board. You've been on this board for what, 25 years, right? Okay, and about 5 minutes ago, you asked for everybody pitching in and working together, okay? And here's a situation where it's a community garden. She's asking a one-time situation where she wants to move some soil, and we're making this into such a mountain here. You know, and,
I think it's your decision.
pardon me?
I think it's his decision.
It's Glenn's decision.
Yeah, it's Glenn's decision
Then-
anyhow.
No, but you wanted our opinion, am I correct? That's why we're even talking about this right now.
Well, the lady
No, the lady
approached the
asked.
board.
Right, okay, and what community is about people pitching in, okay? And you've made the presentation, I personally don't have a problem with it. It's just, it's trying, I think, what you're trying to do is, by interrogating where the community garden is, where it is, and that if we take exception to this, somebody else is gonna hit up the highway superintendent. Simply, this is a community garden, she's asking for a favor here, and I don't have a problem with it once.
Well,
I don't
Tony,
either.
again, the bottom line is this. I want to know where this community garden is going to be. The board needs to meet. We don't even know if there's going to be a community garden.
It's a
Last year,
donation.
it is
It's
a
a
matter,
donation.
it is a
You're-
matter of record that the community garden was moved to Skydog Farms last year. Andrea did, Eileen, you were at the meeting, Ed Jackson, you were at the meeting, and that was what happened last year. So if this community garden is gonna truly be a community garden, it needs to stay behind the facility here, and it needs to be worked without public funds and enjoyed by the community. But if it's gonna be moved around and public funds are gonna be used on private property, I have a huge problem with that, and that's what happened last year.
We don't need the compost moved from Skydog Farms to Skydog Farms. We need to move from Skydog Farms to the community garden.
The highway department should not be moving anything. There's enough people with dump trucks around. Find another volunteer.
I'll
Or
put
pay
it in
somebody.
the trunk of my car, for God's sake.
There you go.
My son has a thing, we'll do that. Where are you? We'll do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. And just for the record, I would not have.
It's not a
problem with
community
it.
anymore when everybody
It's
is
an
acting
extension
like
of the
this.
town. The TLDC, this is what we just discussed. Andrew Arias just got done explaining this, how it works, and obviously,
But
nobody
Carol, the
got it.
problem is last year,
I'm done
there
with
was a
this
lot of
conversation and we're
problems
moving
with the community garden and where its location was. There was grant money used, there was public funds used, it was used on private property, and if you're gonna use public
not
funds,
public
I am telling you,
funds
yes, there was
used, Ned.
grants used, and it was on private property, and I'm here to tell you that you've got, if you're gonna be on this board, and if you're gonna be dealing with public funds, you need to act appropriately and not have a conflict of interest and not utilize public money on private property.
I sat with Andrea over at the government center selling that stuff so that the kids would have money, so there would be money for it. She took nothing.
Eileen, I'm fine with that.
Any further public comments? Bernie?
Come on, Bernie, give us a laugh.
I'm looking at this board. You guys all work for us, right?
That's right.
That's right, Bernie.
Now, if Ned Lang had employees like this, you know what he would do? Tell them, don't let the door hit you in the ass. This is what I'm seeing. You guys are working for us. Let's not forget that.
You're right.
This sounds like it's a personal vendetta. Ned wants to get rid of Jeffrey Clementi. He doesn't care how he does it.
Excuse me.
And I'm here as a taxpayer and a person that voted most of you people in.
Mr. Lang's slogan last year, okay, was "Take back our town."
All right.
And I got that in the mail. You got that in the mail. Everybody in this hall got this in the mail. Wait a minute. Take back our town from whom? Okay? If anything was going to divide this town and not bring it together,
That's
was
what
to
I'm
say,
talking about.
take back
I was
our
just
town.
talking.
From who?
Okay.
From
I
the
was
people
just
that were
talking,
spending our
and
money.
I'm saying,
This
you
is
guys are
not going
forgetting
on,
that you
let's
work
over
for
it.
us.
I
You're
agree.
forgetting that.
I agree, Bernie.
Your salary, your salary, your salary, your salary. Everybody's salary. Everybody's here. We're all taxpayers, so we're paying for everybody's salary.
And I want a bloody raise.
You know when you're gonna get the raise after 25 years, don't you?
Jane?
No, you guys work for us.
We're working for
No,
you.
so, if this lady says she wants to get some cow manure down to the garden, which is gonna benefit the town, why don't we do it? Why should we make a big McGilla about it? Why should we make a big McGilla about it? We make it a big McGilla about everything. We don't even get to the points that really count. It's all about you guys up there. We listen to you arguing all the time. And you're our employees. One must not forget that.
And Bernie, there's also something to be said here. That town taxpayers' money, municipal money, the
Ned,
public's
this
money
is
cannot
public
be
comment
spent
time.
on, on private property.
We can get beyond
I will
it.
speak if I want
Years
to.
ago, we would do anything for anybody in this town. I got news for
I'll do
you.
whatever I want.
You needed sand, you go down to the town barn and get sand. You needed this, you needed that, you got it. If we, now all of a sudden, everybody's picking everybody apart.
Carol, I have 4 light bulbs for the bridge. Do I give them to you?
The bulbs, actually, I spoke with Rick Maloney. Actually, I
Yes.
spoke
Put
with
a stop to
Rick
this.
Maloney also. He helped us out with the lighting on the front, the flag in the front of the building at no cost to the town of Tuston. I asked him to come take a look at it, and he offered to fix it for free. So
I don't think we could take
lit.
free.
He's going to bring the bulbs. I thought he was going to bring them to you, he said, but he's going to check out the lighting.
That's what he was worried about. He said that bulb.
He said it might not be the bulbs.
Yeah.
So he's gonna check that out for us, again, as a favor. He's being very generous to the town, and I very much appreciate that. That is the community spirit, and that is working together.
Yeah. Mhm.
And,
Exactly. Let's do it.
Morgan, you were next?
Yes, I'm just appalled at the bullying, you know, by one of our board members, and the talking over of you. I'm sorry, but it's just, I can't be the only one to witness this, and I would also like to stand up with Bernie and say this is ridiculous, you know, and that there shouldn't be this counterproductive rhetoric by a town bully who's we voted onto our board, who actually is wasting our tax dollars by suing its own board. I think that is absolutely appalling, sir. An embarrassment to this American small town. It's an embarrassment, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
And I think it would be really sad. It would be really sad if you have the TLC audited, or LDC rather, and it would cost us $5,000.
You're spending our money, sir.
You are spending
You are
a lot of our money.
counterproductive.
It has to be, that's the law.
Oh, sir, your voice is counterproductive in every dialogue on the board.
Well, thank you for,
All night long. We sit here and everybody says something constructive. You have a counterpoint that's counterproductive.
Ned, I'm very happy you're on this board. And I thank you very much for the stands that you take. If you need a dump truck, if that doesn't work out, Catskill Farms would more than happy help anything with the community garden, as long as it's not on your property. If it's back there, when I went to look for it last year, I was like, Ned, let me see this, or Norm, let me see this community garden. I walked around there, it was trash strewn, it was weed ridden, it was wires everywhere, and I was like, where's the community garden? Someone says it's on her property. And I was like, what? It's on her property, she's the head of the board, she's the only, there's no checks or balances, she makes the decision, she moves it to her property, I said, this is a community garden. If you need help with the community garden, I have labor, we would happily, just like they did in Highland, just like they did in Lumberland, we're the community businessmen, like Ned, like myself, who have resources, who have employees, we'll pop down here any hour you need for us. If you need water, you need weeding, you need a truck, let us know, we'd be happy to do it. But we want accountability. We want to see an audit of the TLDC. What money came in, what money went out, who was paid, were people paid correctly?
It's
You
mandated.
need our help, you let us know.
Yes, it is mandated, and it's going to be done.
It's
Well, and it's not
mandated.
$5,000, what is there, $10,000 in that account? You can get that guy to do it for free.
No, it's not much.
You know, the guy will do it for free, he's throwing it out so you don't ask for it.
How about
Thank
Ned
you very
pays
much.
for it?
At this
on his
time,
own
I
pocket?
move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No, I don't know.